the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151. Looking for the rain-controlling bull donkey. After Tang Mao arrived at the place, he did not find the bull donkey of the Black Church. When he was looking for it, he suddenly saw a layer of strange purple in the north, which was slowly spreading and gradually covered the northern city. It must be very beautiful if such a large city was covered by purple. However, when you know what it is, you will know that this purple is the beautiful illusion before death, the last desire to stay in this world, but there is no hope. Purple alert. Seeing the moment when the purple alert was raised, the people who were still complaining and not migrating panicked. The streets were in chaos in an instant. At this moment, there was no need to arrange anyone to come here. They all knew that they had to take refuge in the safe area of the inner city wall. Tang Mao searched hard, but to no avail, and this place was also in chaos. Just when he was about to give up and leave, the little snow girl suddenly came out. After the snow girl appeared, she told Tang Mao in a whimper that she felt a strong water attribute energy in the east. The snow girl is a pet of the ice element, not the water element, so Tang Mao was a little uncertain and asked, "Are you sure you didn't feel it wrong?" Eyeing the question, snow girl cried again. She is now a command level elemental pet. How could she feel it wrong? Her perception of elemental attributes is extremely sharp. Because of telepathy, she noticed Tang Mao's unhappy mood, and she happened to detect a special water attribute, so she ran out without permission. Then, with the snow girl pointing the way, Tang Mao rushed in the direction she pointed. What is that in the sky? Is that a piece of meat? How can it be the same as a building? It has eyes. My god, it looks so scary. Just as Tang Mao was rushing to the direction pointed by the snow girl, the crowd on the street suddenly let out a panicked cry. Those who did not follow the order to retreat to the inner city wall did not care about escaping at this time and raised their heads to look at the huge thing passing over the house. Hearing the sound, Tang Mao also looked over, and then he found that it was actually a huge meat mound that hit the street not far away like a flying meteorite. Question mark? This huge monster like a meat mound opened its cave mouth, and suddenly a group of skeletons, rotten corpses, and evil spirits poured out of its stomach at once, like a tide. Tang Mao felt sick. At the same time, there were screams on the street. The crowd, who had finally evacuated in an orderly manner, fell into panic again. Trampling, crowding, pushing, in short, human nature was perfectly displayed at this time. This huge meat mound is not the only one, but it keeps falling from the sky. He is now going to find the bold donkey, so naturally he can't care about these. However, he must not leave this one in front of him alone, because he blocked the way for these people to survive. Girl, possess. The snow girl heard the sound and merged with Tang Mao directly. Then, he jumped up and looked at the undead that kept coming out of the mouth of the meat mound, and ice constellations appeared around him. Crystal spear. As Tang Mao's constellation emerged, spears suddenly emerged and then shot at the mouth of the meat mound. Bang bang bang, the ice spears shattered instantly when they hit the meat mound. However, although the broken ice spears could not cause much damage to the meat mound, they directly froze its body and the undead that came out of its mouth into ice sculptures. Pa. Pa. After the continuous sound of breaking ice, the body of the meat mound instantly froze, and the undead that appeared was also shattered in an instant. Purple skyfield. As Tang Mao approached, the thunder field opened, and then a boom of thunder sounded, and a sword condensed by thunder appeared in Tang Mao's hand. As the saying goes, if you have a woman in your heart, you will naturally be a god. When you draw a sword, he has so many girls of all kinds in his heart. Although he did not draw a knife but a sword, they are generally the same. What's more, the power of the sword that gathers the thunder in this field is even greater than all the advanced magic that Tang Mao is currently using. Puff. The sword slashed down from the head. Although Tang Mao's figure was extremely small in front of the meat mound, the thunder power on the sword was extremely fierce. Breaking through the ice, the thunder directly cut from the head of the meat mound to the bottom. Boom boom boom. The surrounding streets shook instantly, and various cars on the nearby streets turned into ashes in an instant. Even the commander level meat mound and the undead in its belly were all turned into a large number of residual souls and collected by Tang Mao in the Killing Jade. After the sword cut the obstacle into ashes, there was still a slight thunder in the vicinity within hundreds of meters. The ancient capital guards who came to support were all shocked after seeing such a scene. They were the strongest elite army in the ancient capital, but even if they wanted to deal with this meat mound, one person could not do it at all. When they saw Tang Mao solve a huge meat mound by himself, they were completely stunned. At this time, Tang Mao had already left here. At present, the task of rescuing people and clearing the meat mound in these undeads can only be handed over to the guards. Although he didn't want to meddle in other people's business along the way, he still didn't know how many times he had to take action. There was no way he couldn't just watch these people being slaughtered by the undeads, right? After 6 hours, Tang Mao finally arrived at the place where the snow girl said. Of course, the reason why it took so long was that he had to kill some undeads on the way and got some things to restore magic energy. This is a private villa, and it may also be due to the terrain. There are no undeads nearby. As soon as he saw this place and he felt the power of water magic, Tang Mao was sure in his heart, damn bastard, it's here. Hey, where is this kid from? Are you lost? Sister, I don't take in strangers here. Just when Tang Mao was about to enter, the door suddenly opened, and a woman's voice came out at the same time. After the door opened, Tang Mao didn't even look at the woman. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the woman and was suddenly pulled in front of him. After pinching the woman's neck, Tang Mao said coldly, "Where is that bald donkey?" The woman whose neck was pinched was stunned. She was a high-level mage after all, but she was captured by the other party before she could react. Question mark? Seeing that she was silent, Tang Mao punched her stomach with a thunder seal. The woman was about to draw a star map, but was instantly interrupted by this punch mixed with thunder seal. Tang Mao pinched her and walked inside, reminding her coldly, "Hurry up and say it, or you will die immediately." At this moment, he had no sympathy for women. Even though this beautiful woman looked inexplicably attractive, there was no appreciation in Tang Mao's eyes, and there was only endless murderous intent. The woman coughed dryly a few times, and said angrily, "You are looking for death. Kill." Although she did not finish the order, 6 people appeared here in an instant. However, the woman's heart was instantly shattered by thunder, and then she was thrown aside by Tang Mao. Judging from their aura, these 6 people who suddenly appeared are all high-level mages. Chapter 152 Tang Mao, bald donkey, you deserve to die. Tick tock. Tick tock. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the drizzle kept dripping. In the courtyard of the private villa, a wandering monk came out. "Brother, what are you doing? We have no grudges in the past or today. Why are you killing my men?" After the wandering monk came out, he looked at the dead woman there, raised his eyebrows, and looked confused. Tang Mao said bluntly, "Are you Wuku?" The wandering monk was stunned when he heard it, obviously not knowing how a young man recognized him. However, he did not nod or shake his head, but asked, "Brother, do you know Wuku?" Seeing that he did not deny it, Tang Mao said again, "Don't you need to continue to control the rain?" Wuku was even more puzzled, always feeling that Tang Mao seemed to know a lot. This rain has been enough to last until the evening, and there is no need to continue. Hearing this, Tang Mao was furious. "Damn bald donkey, you are damned." The moment the words fell, Tang Mao summoned the shadow demon tiger, and the same snow girl disintegrated, and the little flame princess possessed her body. Wuku was stunned when he saw 2 commander level contracted beasts. Although Tang Mao's appearance just now made him understand that the other party should have a contracted pet that can be combined, but he didn't expect that the other party had more than one. What confused him the most was that he actually had 2 commander level summoned beasts. Question mark? Wuku was not good at fighting. Although he also had some means to save his life, he always felt that he might not be able to fight Tang Mao. He didn't want to fight desperately, and then he said, "Little brother, you have to think clearly. As a pilgrim, I don't like fighting and killing. No matter which faction you belong to, let's just meet and nod, and leave some room for each other. Tang Mao sneered, it just so happens that I don't like bald donkeys. What's more, you should be torn into pieces. Little brother, you are joking. I'm very dedicated to praying for those dead souls. Besides, is it a sin for monks? Wu Yuo still said peacefully. Fuck you. Looking at his appearance, Tang Mao was disgusted. Or thunderbolt went straight at him. However, it was blocked by a layer of defense. Seeing that Tang Mao had no reservations about killing, Wu Ku was too lazy to pretend to be a saint. He said in a light voice, boy, you are just a high-level mage. Even if I'm not good at fighting, you may not be able to do anything to me. On the other side, Hanji did not imprison the high-level officials this time, because they had almost guessed the plan of the Black Church. Moreover, not long ago, one of their high-level officials had disappeared. It is obvious that the other party is Seren. But, do they still have time to pursue Seren? Especially when they saw the distorted space appear, and it led all the way to the clouds. The originally dense clouds actually had a hole, which was very eye-catching at a glance. It was as if the sky was missing a piece. The distorted space gradually sank, and the black empty spot was also expanding, gradually turning into a black chaotic vortex, stirring and tearing. The ground at the corresponding spatial axis position suddenly sank. There were already a lot of undead souls there, but as the earth sank, tens of thousands of undead souls fell. From the bell tower, you could see the black undead souls falling like a torrential rain. It was unknown how deep the sinking pit of the earth was. It was like the entrance to hell was slowly opening, or like the esophagus of a huge and terrifying creature was exposed. Ghosts crying, corpses howling. The most terrifying and coldest ghost sounds in the world came from the sinking pit that suddenly appeared. It was the miserable screams of tens of thousands of terrible evil ghosts at the same time. It was the most real crying sound from hell, with despair, resentment, and deep pain. Shaylin. I don't know who exclaimed, and a chill spread to everyone in an instant. Their limbs trembled, and their scalps numbed. There were corpses everywhere, bones with soil, and ghosts were floating there as huge as clouds. That was the legendary black area. Shaylin. Everyone's eyes seemed to have been sucked into the black hole, without any spirit. Hanji got the news from his subordinates and was shocked. Is this the tomb of the greatest wizard, the founder of the undead system, and the ancient king? They were discussing how to repel these undead spirits, and the best way was to find the tomb of the ancient king, and seal him again. But, is the tomb of others a place that anyone can step into? The wizards on the bell tower were all superclass wizards. At this moment, their cowardice in front of the evil abyss was no different from those ordinary people, who were helpless and took refuge. A response plan was prepared before, but it suddenly seemed worthless at this moment. Lu Huan and the Lord of the Underworld seemed to be sucked by the evil abyss. Someone suddenly shouted. Everyone here looked over, and saw that, whether it was Lu Huan, who led the Imperial Guard wizards, or the Lord of the Underworld who disdained humans, they could not escape the swallowing of the evil abyss. Looking at this scene, the world suddenly became silent, as if all the sound waves were sucked into the bottom of the evil abyss by the terrible space vortex. The vast rain curtain and the thick sea of clouds. The black undead army spread to the horizon. The evil abyss is approaching the inner city step by step. Just when everyone was stunned, Mo Fan's terrified voice came out. Mo Fan's words stirred up huge waves in everyone's hearts, as if their internal organs were broken. The evil abyss is approaching the inner city? Question mark? Once the evil abyss, that can easily destroy the Lord of the Underworld appears in this inner city that accommodates millions of refugees. Several high-ranking officials can no longer imagine this scene. But at this time, there was no time for shock. Hanji turned his head to look at Fangu and the others and said, the evil abyss is a deadly place. Even Lu Huan and the Lord of the Underworld could not escape, but it is not completely impossible to enter. Hearing this, Mo Fan and others who came here with Fangu, as well as Zhang Xiaohao who got the antidote, were all stunned. Hanji continued, Shaylin is the ancient king's mausoleum. He created such a dead place more than 2000 years ago, and he sleeps in it forever. No one dares to disturb him. No one, including the most powerful magician, can step into his mausoleum. But there is a group of people that Shaylin will not refuse. They are the people of Weiju village. As Hanji spoke, Fang Gu expressed his willingness to go. Zhang Xiaohao said that he also had the blood of Weiju village in his blood. Mo Fan did not want to wait for death here, and he was willing to go to Shaolin, because there was a holy spring. After everyone decided to fight to the death, they began to gather people and prepare to push towards Shaolin. Just when they arrived at Inyuan Gate and the Golden Barrier, they saw that the crowd that gathered was not all magicians, but there were many ordinary people. After seeing this scene, Mo Fan, Fang Gu and Zhang Xiaohao were all puzzled. It was a large army mainly composed of men, and they arrived in the North City under the leadership of military magicians. It was completely dark, and the dim lighting barely allowed one to see their gloomy faces. They walked slowly, and some even looked expressionless, like death row prisoners. But think about it, they are all ordinary people, facing the tide of undead. Isn't it just to die? Zhang Xiaohao asked puzzledly, why call these ordinary people here? Are we asking them to follow us out of the city? Not only Zhang Xiaohao, but also Mo Fan and Fang Gu were full of doubts. They will leave the city through the small gate first to attract the attention of the undead, and then the magic group will lead you out of the north gate and directly to the evil abyss. Hanji's subordinate, the mysterious grey-white man answered. Mo Fan was a little angry and scolded. Doing this is just sending them to die in vain. What's the difference between doing this and the Black Church? Although he looked heartless, he really couldn't do it when he saw so many people dying. Yaoting military commander heard the angry voices of several people, but walked over and said, we didn't issue any orders, nor did we force them to join the army. They volunteered. They know this better than you. We announced the facts of the Shaoyuan, and told them that the city will sink into hell before dawn. We mages will definitely make this last fight at the cost of our lives. We also hope that there will be volunteers to use their bodies to attract the attention of the undead army, so that you can successfully enter the Shaoyuan. Their bodies will be gnawed beyond recognition by the undead, their heads will be ripped off, and their blood will be sucked clean. But all this will also happen to their relatives and children, so some people will choose to be the undead bait, and the number of people is even more than we imagined. Hearing this, Mo Fan and the other two fell silent. Just as the military commander in front of him said, if they fail, won't their fate be the same? If they fight, maybe they can bring hope to their family and children. If they don't fight, then they will only have one way to go, which is death. Moreover, they still have military mages around them. They will not be harmed until all the military mages are dead. This is the promise of the military mages and their responsibility. They have never refused. There is a small door near the east of the north gate. The volunteers formed a long crowd and gathered at the small door. Standing at the north gate, you can see that the tightly closed small door has opened. You can see that a superclass mage took the brunt of it and directly killed his way out of the golden barrier protection. Soon, the volunteer group also rushed out of the safety barrier. They stood on the open space cleared by the mages. As the crowd increased, the breath of the living suddenly caused the entire ocean of undead to boil. You can see the dark tide of undead rushing towards the small door, and the greedy corpses even lie on their companions and pounce on the area of the small door. Chapter 153. Kirin is online and trembling. No matter it was the group of ordinary people or the leading superclass mage, everyone knew what their fate would be. Facing the tide of undead, even if it was a superclass mage, if he didn't run away, the final outcome would be the same. Moreover, if he was going to escape, there was no need for him to fight his way out. Because, with a lot of magic energy consumed, they would just be doomed. After the volunteers attracted a group of undead, Hanji personally led the charge, and a road emerged under a wave of magic bombardment from several superclass mages. Then, the guards formed a square formation to protect the three people, and then rushed towards the place of the evil abyss. On the other side, Saren was originally undercover to watch his masterpiece, but first the Deacon Hujin lost contact, and then the headmaster Wuku lost news. She had to leave. After all, if she was caught and solved, then the damn conferred god ceremony would be a joke. When she came to the villa where Wuku was, she saw several dead bodies lying on the ground in the courtyard of the villa, and she also saw a tiger-shaped man. The tiger-shaped man looked extremely ferocious, and there were 3 phantoms behind him. Moreover, that momentum was not comparable to hers at all, which made her feel trembling physically and mentally. Then, she saw a cloth-clothed monk on the tiger-shaped man's thick arm, but the monk seemed to be very miserable now. Almost only had one breath left. The monk was none other than the head of the sect, Wuku, her most important subordinate. However, Seren did not dare to make a move, because she was sure that if she did, she would be torn to pieces very quickly. The most important thing was that she had no idea what this thing was. After Tang Mao solved Wuku, he did not notice Seren's existence, or because of the death breath of the evil abyss, he had no time to search for anything. Holding this perverted monk who had committed many evil deeds, he jumped up in an instant, his wings half of which were flames and half of which were frost, and flew quickly towards the place of the evil abyss. Looking at the colorful colors emanating from the distance, Tang Mao was sure that the battle had begun. This battle was inevitable after all. Of course, Wuku, who was originally waiting to exchange for the bounty, was turned into ashes by Tang Mao when he rushed to the battlefield. This monk is indeed a person that Seren values. He really has a lot of good things in his hands, but facing the demonized Tang Mao, he had no time to use them and was KO'd. Just like those high-level mages, they died, almost as if Tang Mao used a skill to kill a group of rotten corpses. The moment he rushed over, Hanji and others noticed it. Even the corpse of the mountain noticed it, not because of how loud his movement was, but because of this breath, which really shocked them. After Tang Mao arrived, he looked at the military mages who were surrounded in several places, and when he raised his tiger claws, a huge fireball emerged. Even though the demonized Tang Mao's fire system was still mid-level, his damage surpassed any high-level magic. Moreover, with the help of little Yanji, it was naturally even better. 2 consecutive fireballs were blasted, and thousands of undead were instantly reduced to ashes. When Tang Mao came over, the military mages were already desperate. After all, they were not human and so powerful, how could they not despair? But they didn't expect that this tiger-shaped demon was actually helping them. Before they could react, Tang Mao went to help other military mages who were surrounded. And when he went to rescue another military mages, he saw that the military mages he had just rescued not only did not evacuate, but also continued to rush forward. After seeing this scene, Tang Mao stopped, turned back to look at the two teams and said, "Why are you not going back? Are you going to die?" Seeing that the tiger-shaped demon spoke human language, the two teams of military mages were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that demons could speak human language. A man who seemed to be the captain said, "Although I don't know why you saved us, we have our mission." Ordinary people are not afraid of death, and rushed out of the inner city. As a soldier, we can't take a step back. Since they are military mages, and the strongest guard mages in the ancient capital, they can enjoy glory and naturally experience death. Especially seeing that their supreme commander of the guards fought to the death, and Hanji, the supreme commander, personally appeared. Why would they retreat? Tang Mao was stunned when he heard this, and at this time a large number of undead swept in again, and the killing jade in his arms seemed to be guiding him. Tang Mao sighed slightly in his heart, and the surface was still as calm as water. "I hope you will go back alive. They are guard mages, the guardians of the ancient capital. Facing the countless undead threats, it is indeed right not to retreat." Tang Mao chose to respect their profession. He still admired these people from the bottom of his heart. Even in his eyes, the strength of this guard was just so. But it was because of this that he really admired the other party. If it weren't for the power of the devil as a life-saving trump card, he would never have set foot in this ancient capital. As soon as Tang Mao finished speaking, he rushed forward. At the moment he rushed forward, thunders burst out from his body. Originally it was destructive thunders. Under the demonization, even a thunder seal could instantly turn dozens of undead into nothingness. They rushed all the way, and Tang Mao helped those who could help. As for whether they could go back alive, that was a matter of luck. Just when Tang Mao was about to kill his way to the corpse of the mountain, he suddenly felt the powerful tremor of the unicorn. This tremor seemed to make him go to the evil abyss. Tang Mao immediately cursed, "Damn it. I didn't drink the holy spring, and I'm not from here. Are you kidding me? The evil abyss is the tomb of the ancient king, although this is not his own world. But Aang Zeng is still Aang Zeng, still the great man who expanded the territory of China. His tomb, who can go there if they want? but Tang Mao's cursing voice did not stop its vibration, as if something was calling it. Damn, although he didn't know what it was, Tang Mao decided to go to the edge to have a look. There was no way, the killing was too much. Of course, if there was no feeling of swallowing himself here, he would go down. Otherwise, no matter how much the killing Jade jumped, he would resolutely turn around and leave. P.S. For this week's rewards and monthly tickets, I will add one more chapter. Damn, I typed nearly 20,000 words today, and you still dare to say that I'm short and weak? Chapter 154 Cemetery Palace. At this time, outside the Shaolin, Hanji, who was wearing dark golden armor, sighed slightly as he looked at the people who were about to enter. Although the armor on his body was very majestic, it could not hide his old age and the fatigue of worrying about the safety of a city. At this moment, the tiger-shaped man who had just arrived and gave him a terrifying and oppressive feeling appeared here. When he saw Tang Mao, who looked like a tiger and a human, Hanji was instantly ready for a hard fight. Just now, because he was in a hurry to lead Emo Fan and the others to move forward, Hanji did not know that Tang Mao had rescued the guard mage. Emo Fan and the others could be said to be the last hope of the ancient capital, and he could not allow them to make any mistakes. But just when Hanji was about to draw the constellation and take action, Tang Mao had already appeared beside him. Seeing Hanji describing the constellations, Tang Mao said dissatisfiedly, "Old man, are you old and blurry? What are you doing? Can't you tell friend from foe?" After hearing this familiar voice, Hanji stopped his hand and looked at Tang Mao in shock. You are Tang Mao?" Tang Mao curled his lips and said dissatisfiedly, "Nonsense, if I were a demon, would you still be alive?" Tang Mao didn't say it casually. Just now when Hanji was dazed with his back to him, he was fully confident that he could kill him with a sneak attack. Hanji was a little confused and asked in confusion, "Why did you become like this?" "This is the demon system." Tang Mao responded, and then said, "You go back first. I also need to enter the evil abyss." After speaking, Tang Mao tiptoed and left here. Hanji is also one of the top people in China, and naturally he has some understanding of the demon system. But, didn't this experiment fail? But from Tang Mao's point, how can it look like a failure? It's not very successful. A higher level mage, after being demonized, actually made him feel fear. Tang Mao didn't talk too much with Hanji, because Killer New seemed very excited. The closer he got to the abyss, the more he could feel that the gloomy wind here was like a huge vortex of heaven and earth, covering this area in chaos, so that the vast army of corpses disappeared, and it was like stepping into another world. Entering here, if you have intensive phobia, you will probably be scared to death by this scene. It is really appropriate to describe it as a hell furnace. The most extreme evil ghosts, demons, and monsters in this world are piled up like a garbage dump incinerator, forming a sea and a mountain. Tens of thousands of roars, screams, and cries mixed together, piercing the soul, as if the pain has crawled all over the body. Even though he had prepared himself mentally, after seeing such a scene, Tang Mao still wanted to retreat. But Killer New seemed to have noticed what Tang Mao was thinking. When he was about to retreat, a force suddenly wrapped him up. Then, regardless of whether Tang Mao was willing or not, he turned into a stream of light and rushed straight into the evil abyss. In the process of being forced to fall, Tang Mao felt that he had escaped into a messy dream. In the dream, he constantly experienced the past of these ghosts. Each past was enough to make the heart pierced with holes, making people want to bite their tongues and commit suicide. It was very long, extremely long. There were thousands of ghosts here. Each ghost would pass on his pain, and even let you have nightmares in his past. He was hanged countless times, drowned countless times, was executed by slow slicing countless times, and was buried alive in a coffin countless times. Damn it, dog killer //. The evil abyss is not deep, but the deep is resentment. It is simply a bottomless pit of pain. Feeling the entanglement of these ghosts, Tang Mao silently recited civilized language in his heart. I don't know how long I have been reincarnated, how many thousands of years I have gone through, and how much of my personal experience and memory of the past and present lives are left. In short, when Tang Mao opened his eyes, he even had doubts about his awakening this time. When Tang Mao was standing here in a daze, a halo suddenly appeared on his chest and then entered his brain. When the halo entered his brain, Tang Mao was considered to have awakened. Fuck you dog. When he came back to his senses, Tang Mao's first reaction was to greet Killin warmly. Then, he began to look around. This Shaolin was an overlapping space, and he had some understanding of what had just happened. Just experiencing it in person, it was really terrifying. Buzz Killin didn't take Tang Mao's warm greetings to heart. Instead, it seemed to be urging him to leave quickly. What are you urging me to do? Okay, dad knows. After mumbling unhappily for a while, Tang Mao followed Killin's guidance and flew towards the underground palace. The longer Tang Mao flew inside, the more shocked he was. In this way, Aang Zeng created a new world directly in an abyss of constant space drift. He was truly unprecedented and unparalleled. Placing his own mausoleum here, this wisdom and ability made the magic civilization of more than 2000 years later pale in comparison. Under the command of Killin, Tang Mao walked without any obstruction. Turning east and west, he entered the cemetery palace. After entering, because the space was not large enough, he could no longer use his flying ability. He walked inside on foot. It seemed that there was no end to the road. It was unknown how long he had walked before Tang Mao saw a thick stone wall and stopped. There must be a mechanism here, but looking for a mechanism was obviously not suitable for Tang Mao, as he was not a person who used his brain. Ice lock. Crash. The ice star map was formed in one thought, and then the ice locks hit the wall directly. In an instant, the entire stone wall was covered with ice. Fierce fist. When the ice layer covered, the flames on the tiger's claws emerged, and the moment they condensed into a fireball, they were thrown out. After the fireball hit the ice wall, there was a continuous sound of crackling, and the ice layer began to crack continuously, and cracks appeared one after another. Then there was a booming sound, and the stone wall in front of him was broken by the bombardment of cold and heat. After the stone wall was broken, Tang Mao didn't care about the situation, and rushed directly inside. Of course, this is not that he really has no brains, but after the Killin Jade arrived here, the trembling feeling became stronger and stronger. So Tang Mao didn't even look at it, and rushed in directly. After entering the stone wall, Tang Mao only felt that his feet were empty, but fortunately he reacted quickly, and the wings behind him exerted force, and stayed in the air. Chapter 155, The Phantom of the First Emperor. After Tang Mao stabilized his body, he could see everything around him clearly. After the stone wall came out, the space here became much larger. Looking up, it was endless. Although it was endless, it seemed as if he could leave here. But the magic energy that kept emitting from it gave Tang Mao a feeling of this road is blocked. When he looked down, he saw a stone pillar on the empty stone slab. And the wisp of green flame on this stone pillar seemed to be the target that Killin knew had been guiding him to come here. After seeing the flame, Tang Mao flew down directly. Although he didn't know what kind of flame it was, Killin knew was so excited that it must be extraordinary. In addition, he now has the fire attribute, so this flame is even more important. At the moment when Tang Mao just landed, the ground suddenly shook. There was no breath here originally, but suddenly the corpse gas came out. Then one by one, the undead of the general level emerged. At this moment, Tang Mao no longer cared about why these undead appeared, because these undead had surrounded him. Some of them were holding shields, some were holding spears, and some were holding broadswords. The most important thing was that, if it weren't for the corpse key on their bodies and the empty eyes, they would be almost the same as a normal person. It seems that, if you want to get the reward, you still have to kill monsters. Tang Mao muttered, and thunder appeared around his body. To kill monsters in seconds, you have to use thunder magic after all. As soon as the tiger claws were raised, a flash of destructive thunder appeared directly. It expanded to the surroundings. Seeing Tang Mao's attack, the attacking undead retreated together in a very regular manner. At the same time, the undead holding shields took a step forward. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Then, the undead put their shields in front of them, and the shields on all sides immediately formed a defensive formation. Boom boom boom. When the thunder was transmitted to the shield, it was actually resisted. However, even without the demon bonus, the power was not something that the war general level undead could resist. What's more, he is now in demon form. It was already a great thing that these undead could resist, but in the end, their bodies were directly shattered by the thunder. Hoo-la la. After the shield holding undead died, the group behind them was even more vulnerable. The speed of the thunder spreading was the speed of their destruction. After one strike, the field was cleared in an instant. Wisps of residual souls were collected by him like fireflies in the exchange rate. Not bad. If it weren't for the incarnation of the devil, even a superclass mage would have only one way to die here, right? After dealing with this group of undead, Tang Mao said with some emotion. After all, a circle of undead suddenly appeared around him. In this case, if the speed was fast enough, it would only be a mid-level magic. However, if those shield soldiers blocked this attack, the spearmen and sword soldiers behind them would probably attack immediately. But just after he took a step closer to the flames, the undead that were just full of them appeared again. It was still the same number and the same undead army. Ugh. Ice lock. Sure, Tang Mao didn't care about being surprised, and a stream of cold air was released directly. After the cold air rushed out, the surrounding undead army immediately turned into ice sculptures. Fierce Fist. After all the opponents turned into ice sculptures, Tang Mao raised a fireball above his head, and then the fireball began to spray violent flames 360 degrees. After the flames swept over the ice sculptures, these undead were instantly turned into ashes as before. Finally, they turned into residual souls, and were collected by Tang Mao. Although he didn't understand what was going on, Tang Mao continued to walk towards the wisp of blue flame. This time, he didn't take small steps like before, but directly used space magic, and came to the front of the blue flame in one step. Before he could get the fire, the surrounding undead army reappeared. Tang Mao didn't observe it, and directly blasted out with thunder. The whole space was like a natural minefield. Boom boom thunder sounded, and when the thunder ended, the army of undead that had just appeared was turned into ashes again. After dealing with these undead, when Tang Mao was about to reach out for fire, before he got close, a terrifying pressure came out from the light curtain surrounding the blue flame. The terrifying breath oppressed him, making him feel like kneeling down. Flames, thunder, whirlwinds, and ice layers kept pouring out of Tang Mao's body, but the pressure was still unstoppable. Just when the pressure was getting heavier and heavier, and Tang Mao was about to give up, the breath suddenly dissipated. At this time, Tang Mao looked up and saw an illusory figure emerging in front of him. The illusory figure that appeared was wearing a black dragon robe and stepping on a huge blue bird. Although he couldn't see his face clearly, Tang Mao could already guess the identity of the phantom in front of him. Who else could the person in front of him be, except the ancient king of the Lord of the Dead King? When Tang Mao arrived in the ancient capital, he also read some historical records when he had nothing to do at night. Let alone anything else, that domineering declaration alone is enough to make people respectful. I unified the 6 kingdoms, and the world was united. I built the Great Wall to shock the demons of the 9 states, for my great kin, and to protect my country. I swear in the name of the ancient king that, when I'm alive, I will defend the land and open up the borders, wipe out the demons, and establish my great kin as a foundation of eternity. When I die, I will also turn into a dragon soul, to protect my China forever. This oath is witnessed by the sun and the moon, and the heaven and earth are witnesses. The demons and ghosts listen to it. These words only appeared in Tang Mao's mind when he saw an illusion. It was as if he was right next to him when the other party swore. More than 2000 years ago, a monarch who created the undead system without any external force, stepped into the forbidden spell with this step. The ancient king was the real first person. After his death, he became an emperor and built such a huge tomb palace. The most important thing is that the location of its palace is actually under the evil abyss. This is obviously incomparable to the undead spirits of other countries. Just when Tang Mao was in a daze, the phantom had begun to slowly dissipate, and the flame was also freed. At this time, the kiln jade emerged, and then a ray of light emerged, and the light rushed straight to the flame, and then a stream of green energy was absorbed by it. Although Tang Mao also wanted to absorb the flame, Kilin obviously needed it too. Kilin's promotion would bring him greater benefits, so Tang Mao chose to give up and just watched quietly, thinking about the phantom just now. It is really hard to imagine that the greatest emperor of China would eventually die in a foreign country because of a slash in the air. Chapter 156, Blue Luin Fire Phoenix. At the inner city wall, Hanji's subordinates, dressed in grey and white, let the rain fall and wet their hair. They did not move, and their eyes were always looking at the retreating mages. However, he knew better than anyone that it was easy to fight their way out, but there were too few who could really return. Even the superclass mages would perish in the sea of corpses. It was pitch black, and the magic light was extremely subtle and could be swallowed up by the majestic corpse gas at any time. He had already seen the military mage team sinking into a sea of skeletons and rotten corpses, and the light was getting dimmer and dimmer. It was certain that without any magic light shining, the team would be completely wiped out. At this time, the night was completely dark, and the magic light rolled up in the night, became smaller and smaller. The message could no longer be conveyed. All that was left was to stare at the endless darkness and silently count down to the end. Alas, at this time, it can be said to be the most uncomfortable. Should we go out to support? Seeing him like this, one of the association members who stayed behind couldn't help but speak up. The mysterious grey-white man shook his head. If he really went out to support, it would be hard to say whether the city could be defended until dawn. Their mission has always been to protect the ordinary people here and fight to the last moment. Sir, there is a man who claims to be the village chief of Weiju village. He said that he seemed to have seen the Imperial Mausoleum. A guard mage hurried over to report. Saw the Imperial Mausoleum? What do you mean? Where is he? In the bell tower. The mysterious grey-white man heard this and was about to leave for the bell tower, but saw a superclass mage returning to the inner city wall. The demon man who was recovering his magic power here was overjoyed when he saw this person and immediately went to meet him. However, after the two talked for a while, they knew that the situation was not very good. Hunter King, please follow us to the bell tower. Zisang, the village chief of Hua village, seems to have seen through the things about the Imperial Mausoleum and is waiting there, said the mysterious white man. I'll wait for the president and others here. You go first. Du Zhao said. Okay. At the bell tower, a palm-sized bronze mirror was placed on an old table. A group of people gathered around the table, staring at the picture in the bronze mirror. It's really them. Hanji's face was full of fatigue, but he couldn't hold back his excitement. After they came back from the battle, they thought that Mo Fan and his friends had jumped into the evil abyss, and they had completely lost contact. They could only wait, but unexpectedly, Hua village chief Zisang came and presented the bronze mirror. Now seeing them, everyone was slightly excited. As long as a few people are alive, there is still hope. Lu Zhu, who had just returned, was pale and was unwilling to go for treatment with injuries on his body. Looking at a few people, he asked, what happened? Hanji responded, I don't know how they dealt with the demon lotus. However, in the current situation, it is obvious that no one is too concerned about this. After all, this is obviously one step closer to the ancient king. As long as we reach the ancient king, everything will become possible. The city does not need to be buried, people do not need to die, and even the army of the undead may retreat. Hanji is actually more curious about where Tang Mao, who jumped down with him, went. I thought they could not pass the front palace. After all, the eternal demon lotus is indeed too magical, but the next bridge of 9 deaths and 1 life. Alas, I hope they can be safe. Zisang said with a sigh. What is the bridge of 9 deaths and 1 life? The mysterious white man asked immediately. To reach the altar blood throne, you must cross this bridge of 9 deaths and 1 life. This is probably the most mysterious place in the tomb palace. The ancient king allowed us descendants to enter his mausoleum, but he did not seem to allow a group of useless mediocre people to appear in his bloodline. Therefore, while using the evil abyss to block outsiders, he also set up these tests for our descendants in the mausoleum. The eternal demon lotus eliminated the weak, and the bridge of 9 deaths and 1 life was mostly to select qualified people to see him. Zisang responded. The words of the old village chief were obviously a cold water for those who had just seen the flame of hope. After all, Mo Fan and the other 3 were only mid-level mages. With their strength, it was hard to imagine how the ancient king would feel qualified. Time had passed unknowingly, and it was already the second half of the night. The roar of the undead became more fierce, and the golden barrier was shaking constantly. It was not the first time that the powerful mountain corpse attacked the barrier, and those who fought against the mountain corpse were more than half dead or injured. The city was in a precarious situation, and it seemed difficult to see the next dawn. At this time, in the hall under the tomb palace, Killin had absorbed the energy from the flame, and also instilled a picture into Tang Mao. From this picture, Tang Mao knew that when Aang Zeng was alive, these totem beasts were all his helpers. Just like the Great Wall today, it was built by Aang Zeng with the powerful earth magic and its body after the fall of King Lang. And this flame was the fire of the totem sacred beast King Luan Fire Phoenix, which was Aang Zeng's exclusive mount back then. Although it fell for unknown reasons in the end, there was a lot of power in this flame. This flame can be said to be comparable to the pseudo sky seed. But the power is too huge, and Tang Mao can't absorb it at all with his current fire strength. This is why it absorbs it. After the Killin absorbed it, the remaining fire source was introduced into Tang Mao's body. After absorbing the flame of the King Luan Fire Phoenix, Tang Mao could clearly feel that his fire system seemed to have reached the intermediate perfection. The original demonic power was about to dissipate, but the moment the flame entered his body, he was resurrected with full blood again. After getting what he wanted, Killin Jade was already stable. Tang Mao was naturally even more satisfied. He was cursing before, but now that he had the soul fire, he was left with really fragrant. However, the ancient capital was still in a catastrophe at this time. Since he had come here, he naturally couldn't sit idly by. Then, Tang Mao left here and walked outside. At this time, Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao finally stepped into the death gate together. Or maybe it was because Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao walked together that they encountered so many troubles. This bridge of life and death was just a cover. After all, anyone who walked through that scumbag Fangu could pass through it. Why did they encounter obstacles? Isn't it because of the blood relationship? When Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao walked for a while, they suddenly saw things falling from above. The two paused, and when they looked up, they saw that a silver vortex appeared at some point, floating there like a cloud, and it seemed to be slowly turning. And the things that fell from the silver vortex, like black drizzle, were actually undead! Exclamation mark. The showers falling from the silver vortex were actually corpse rains. Rotten corpses, skeletons, and evil spirits were so dense that they looked like rain. Like Mo Fan and the others, they seemed to have just been drawn into this independent space, and their eyes, that hated evil, were still filled with confusion. Chapter 157 Rushing to the Rescue. At the same time, everyone who was waiting for the bronze mirror to show the picture suddenly heard a guard mage come to report that he saw a silver vortex. What did you say? The silver vortex swept away a group of undead. The mysterious white man at the Bell Tower Magic Association said with a puzzled look on his face. How could a silver vortex suddenly appear? Everyone was even more confused. Now outside the golden barrier, it was either heavy rain or a sea of undead. So what was the silver vortex? It's spatial turbulence, a strange time and space door that can sweep life into it and throw it to a special place. Hanji said slowly. Everyone climbed up to the Bell Tower observation tower, and through the barrier of the inner city, they could see that there was indeed a silver vortex rotating outside the pitch black, just between the North City and the Shaolin. How can you find a way to see their situation? Compared with this silver vortex, Duzawa was more concerned about whether Mo Fan and others could pass through this bridge of life and death. They had stepped into the bridge of life and death for a while, but there was no bronze mirror on the bridge, so they didn't know what the situation was now. It should be possible. The evil eye bronze mirror in the mausoleum actually has souls attached to it. They will follow the invaders. Just now, the evil eye bronze mirror has flown to the bridge of life and death where Mo Fan and others walked into. I think it will be soon. Got it, got it. Look. Zisang said hurriedly. In the bronze mirror, a slightly curved land appeared. Since it was looking down from a high place, the whole small piece of land seemed to be in sight. Oh no, it's a silver vortex. At this moment, several high-level officials and the guards who were expecting a miracle to happen were stunned. It's over this time. This silver vortex is endless. How can they resist it with just 2 people? I don't know who said it suddenly. No one present cared who said this. Because this is a fact. With the strength of Mo-Fan and Zhang Xiao, how can they withstand these endless undead? I'm afraid they stepped into the Death Gate bridge, which is the Death Gate room. Zisang said this fact. Seeing the silver outside still absorbing the dead, and the words of the old village chief, several people fell silent. This time, I'm afraid there is really no hope. No. It's that tiger-shaped demon. How come it also appears inside? It's over. It's all over. At this moment, the seriously injured Lu Zhu suddenly spoke in despair. Lu Zhu was also one of the escorts. He had seen this demon rushing towards Hanji and the others before. Although he didn't know what happened later, he thought it had been solved when he saw Hanji coming back. But now it seems that it's not the case. Question mark? The tiger-shaped demon's momentum is not weaker than the corpse of the mountain. It appeared here at this time. How can Mo-Fan and Zhang Xiao resist it? When everyone was full of disappointment, Hanji suddenly said excitedly, "Great, great. Tang Mao, this kid, I knew he was not dead." As Hanji spoke, everyone present looked at him. "President, what are you doing?" The mysterious grey-white man looked at Hanji with some confusion and asked. Not only him, but also Lu Zhu, Du Zhao and others all looked at him at the same time. Hanji wiped the tears from his eyes because of excitement, and then said, "That tiger-shaped demon is not a demon, he is Tang Mao." Hearing this, several people were even more puzzled, and the hunting king Du Zhao seemed to have thought of something, and looked at Tang Mao in the bronze mirror with a shocked face. He was stunned for a moment, and then looked at Hanji and said, "Then is it the demon system?" Du Zhao was responsible for dealing with those failed demon system products before. No one said that he hadn't noticed it before, but when Hanji said this, he reacted immediately. Yes, it is the demon system. Seeing Du Zhao said it uncertainly, Hanji nodded. The new demon system failed. I remember that Scumlu 9 was killed because of it. Military Commander Lu Zhu said. Hanji shook his head. I don't know what's going on. However, one thing is certain now. That is, Tang Mao has mastered this new system. Lu Zhu sighed. After demonization, the potential of the human body will increase several times. He is born with dual systems. No wonder he had such a terrifying aura before. No wonder this kid dared to challenge the monarch with you before. It turns out that there is such a trump card. A military commander next to him said in shock. Brother Fan. Zhang Xiao's forehead was full of sweat. The number of undead was beyond his imagination. This was more than what he encountered in Xianqi. There were more than 1,000 and nearly 2,000. Enough to form a huge torrent of undead that swallowed the two of them directly. What frightened him the most was the sudden appearance of this tiger-shaped demon. He just stood in front of the two people, and it was difficult for them to breathe. Mo-Fan also looked at the front with a confused face. Although he broke through the high-level fire system with the help of the demon lotus, he was so powerless, even if he was facing the guy in front of him. Fierce Fist. Tang Mao didn't care what the two people were thinking. After watching the silver vortex that had just dispersed, another one appeared. He immediately raised his tiger claws. At the same time, the original snow girl in the C position behind him was also replaced by the flame girl. The blue-red flame condensed in the claws and quickly changed into a huge fireball. After the fireball was condensed, Tang Mao threw it at the undead that rushed over. Sizzle. 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 The fireball rolled all the way down. Whether it was a slave-level undead or a general-level undead, as long as it was touched, it would die. After a fireball dissipated, nearly 700 to 800 undead souls turned into residual souls, and their spirits turned into firefly lights, and were absorbed by him. Of course, this must have been absorbed into the killing jade, not into his body. After the fireball killed 700 to 800 undead souls, Tang Mao was suddenly covered with thunder again. Just when it condensed into a giant python, the remaining undead souls rushed over again. And the thunder python on his body also rushed out in an instant. Zilla. Zilla. Although it has turned into a thunder python, it is invisible, and penetrated the entire undead army in an instant. It seems that there is no damage, but the undead souls penetrated by lightning stopped, and the thunder light on their bodies also dispersed to the undead souls nearby that were not hit. The speed was extremely fast, and in an instant, all the undead souls were penetrated by the thunder python. Explode. Just after the thunder python penetrated all the undead souls, Tang Mao uttered a word in a light voice. The next moment, a loud thunderous sound of boom boom was heard in this space. Perhaps because the destructive power of thunder was too strong, the space here was trembling, and the army of undead that was just like the sea water just now disappeared in an instant. After a wave of bombardment, Tang Mao looked at the silver vortex that appeared again, stretched out his hand, and used the power of space to shatter it with a bang. Chapter 158, Ice and Fire Fusion. Of course, with his current strength, he could not completely destroy the vortex. However, Tang Mao did not intend to prevent it from continuing to appear. He turned around and looked at Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao. Mo Fan, the rest of the things are left to you. As for the army of undead, I will deal with it. After saying that, Tang Mao flew directly into the silver vortex that appeared again. Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao were left staring at each other. Zhang Xiaohao was stunned and looked at what was happening in front of him. Brother Fanfan, I don't know what's going on, but that tiger-shaped demon always gives me a familiar feeling. Mo Fan shook his head and said, let's go. After passing this place, we should be able to see the ancient king. Zhang Xiaohao did not ask any more questions. After all, there were more important things to do at the moment. And Tang Mao rushed directly to the outside of the ancient capital with the silver vortex. His spatial power has also reached a high level, so it is not difficult to get out. Looking at the silver vortex that was still absorbing the undead, Tang Mao first threw a fireball, then blasted out a layer of ice, and then thunder fell again. After a moment, all the silver vortices were destroyed by him. After solving these vortices, Tang Mao headed towards the place where the corpse of the mountain was. At this time, ZHU Meng, the military team and the guards had suffered heavy losses. However, the strength of the corpse of the mountain was not something they could resist. But even so, they were still fighting hard and had no intention of retreating. Just when Tang Mao was about to rush over to help, the dense army of undead underground, like a tide, suddenly attacked him. One by one, the slave-level undead were thrown up like shells. Tang Mao was not going to pay attention to these little undead, but it was not his style to let them attack like this without fighting back. But, after dodging hundreds of undead shells in a row, Tang Mao's left tiger claw was covered with flames, and then his tiger claw was covered with ice. Then he put his hands together to combine the two elemental forces into one. This method was the first time he used it. After becoming a demon, he seemed to be able to do what he couldn't do normally, using two kinds of energy. Of course, this was also thanks to the help of the two element, Snow Girl and Flame Princess. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to do it. When the fire magic and ice magic condensed, they did not cancel each other out, but their power became more and more destructive. Even this feeling completely crushed his most destructive thunder attribute magic. The two magics continued to condense, and the undead shells that were thrown at him never stopped. However, Tang Mao had no intention of hiding. The undead shells that rushed towards him were either frozen into ice sculptures or refined by flames. The flames and ice, under continuous condensation, transformed into the appearance of the Bloluin Fire Phoenix. A huge and strange cry came out, and the entire ancient capital city trembled. After the Bloluin Fire Phoenix emerged, it flew straight down to the ground. Before it touched the ground, some of the undead in front were instantly killed by the impact. When it approached the ground, it was like a powerful bomb. With a boom, a huge mushroom cloud was directly blown up. The moment the mushroom cloud rose, everyone's eyes looked here, including the mountain corpse that had defeated ZHU Meng and others. When he saw that area, thousands of undead disappeared in an instant. He roared, and then took a step, and rushed towards Tang Mao. The old stairs were wet by the rain, and several muddy footprints stepped on them hurriedly. The entire inner city was not only surrounded by the army of undead, but also trapped by the cold rain and darkness. People wanted to see the dawn, but were afraid of its arrival. How long it had been, no one had a conclusion. The clock on the clock tower had been deliberately covered, and no one was willing to watch a death countdown. A pair of flaming wings wobbled and flew back to the bell tower from a distance. The figure under the wings almost fell halfway on the railing of the bell tower platform. Zuo Feng and the demon man of the Imperial Guard saw it and hurriedly went up to support him. Member Zhu Meng, are you okay? Zuo Feng asked. Zhu Meng's eyes were dim. When he was about to speak, he first heard a strange cry and then suddenly heard a loud explosion of boom. The defensive energy shield became much dimmer because of the impact of the explosion. Zhu Meng didn't care about his injuries and hurriedly walked to the inner city wall. At this time, Hanji and others were all looking at the scene outside the ancient capital with shock. After Zhu Meng arrived, he asked uncertainly, what was that just now? Forbidden spell? No. Although Hanji was also surprised, he still shook his head and motioned Zhu Meng to look for himself. At this time, he didn't even care about Zhu Meng's injuries and casualties. Zhu Meng also turned his head and looked into the distance. He almost sat on the ground in shock. The corpses of the undead that were supposed to be like a tide were now covered with bones, forming a long carpet of bones that stretched for an unknown distance. Although compared with the undead outside the ancient capital, that was nothing, but the undead army, that was originally densely packed like a black cloth, suddenly felt like it was missing a piece. Even if they were watching from here, they could feel how horrible the bombardment was. Immediately, Zhu Meng looked at the master again. When he saw that it was a majestic tiger man-shaped demon, Zhu Meng was dumbfounded again. Where did this demon come from, and why did he come to help humans? He is Tang Mao. The reason why he became like that is because of the demon system. Hanji suddenly spoke, as if he had noticed Zhu Meng's doubts. Zhu Meng's dejected eyes were full of shock. Then he asked in a trembling voice, these were all killed by him? At this moment, he didn't care why Tang Mao became like this. What made him want to know more was whether Tang Mao did it. Yeah, the mysterious grey white man nodded in disbelief. It's not that they don't believe it, this is simply against the power of human magic. Although magicians are indeed very powerful, but someone like Tang Mao is too powerful, right? The inner city of the ancient capital is at least an isolated island that is about to be swallowed by the Black Ocean, and Tang Mao at this time is like a small boat that suddenly appeared. After a moment, the hunting king Duziao was a little dazed and said, do we still have hope? P.S. Is it cool? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 159, Corpse on the Mountain. No one responded. Seeing Tang Mao's horrible blow, they all felt that there was still hope. But looking at the surging army of undead and the mountain corpses rushing over, no one was sure if they could be saved. The most important thing was that everything in the evil abyss was still unclear, and they were still in a passive state. In the dense sea of undead, Tang Mao was floating alone in the air. He was shocked by the explosion just now. Before this, he had never thought that the snow girl and the flame lady could cooperate so well. After the shock, Tang Mao saw the mountain corpses rushing over like a moving mountain. The attacks of these undead could not hurt him. Even if they rushed up, they would be directly frozen by the snow girl or melted by the flame lady. Zio Shan could ignore it directly, but the mountain corpse was different. Its impact could not be offset by the snow girl and the flame lady. A large piece of purple black lightning struck down without warning, tearing a huge crack between heaven and earth, connecting the sky above and hitting the earth below. These thunders gathered on Tang Mao's arms, and the originally sharp tiger claws were now full of thunder power. Zilla, zilla. The sound of thunder came out, making the nearby area feel a little numb. But this time, Tang Mao did not use the destructive lightning magic shells. The movement disappeared after a moment. At this time, the mountain corpse was already approaching. Then Tang Mao's figure suddenly disappeared in midair. The mountain corpse, that was charging like a mountain, after hitting it, didn't hit anything. The mountain corpse failed to hit it, and turned around to see Tang Mao appear in the direction he had just rushed from. The angry mountain corpse roared, and the originally dense tide of undead began to make way for a way out when the mountain corpse rushed back. However, how could their speed be compared with the mountain corpse, which could take a step of tens of meters? In this moment, many undeads were trampled by it. This time, Tangmao looked at the mountain corpse and had no intention of dodging it. He stood with his claws in front of him, and then he was surrounded by thunder, like a thunder energy ball, and projected directly over. Tangmao's speed was even faster than that of the mountain corpse. Watching the mountain corpse and Tangmao's full strength sprint collide, it was like a meteorite hitting a planet. When the two were about to reach one place, the huge wind force they each brought was comparable to a high-level wind magic. Boom. With this collision, the mushroom cloud that had just dispersed reappeared. The undeads that had just gathered were once again in large numbers. At the bell tower, the senior officials, the royal guards and the military mages did not bother to look at the bronze mirror to see the situation of Mo-fan and his companions. At this time, they were completely staring at the battlefield on Tangmao's side, stunned. In terms of strength, whether it is a human superclass or a forbidden spell mage, let alone competing against a brute force monarch like the mountain corpse, even some monarchs or commanding demons are incomparable. However, when they saw Tangmao and the mountain corpse fighting each other like a physical fight, and he was not shaken out, they were somewhat shocked. At this time, the smoke had slowly dispersed. On the ground that was destroyed, and had pits everywhere, the mountain corpse, like a mountain, slapped down with a huge slap, and Tangmao, who was shining with lightning, was still fighting hard. The mountain corpse saw that his slap was actually blocked by a tiny thing. Moreover, his body felt the pain of paralysis, and he was even more furious. Another huge hand suddenly raised high, as if he was going to slap Tangmao into thin slices. However, just as his huge hands were about to close, Tangmao disappeared in an instant. Bang! The mountain corpse put its hands together. After the huge crash sounded, before it had time to check if Tangmao had become fragments, Tangmao clenched his fists and blasted directly to the mountain corpse's collarbone, where there was an obvious wound. Bang! It can be seen that when Tangmao's thunder fist bombarded the mountain corpse's collarbone, a bigger hole was actually opened by this punch. Originally, this wound was only slightly larger than a needle hole for the mountain corpse, but when it felt that the thunder all over the wound not only did not disappear, but also continued to explode again and again, the needle hole-sized wound suddenly became conspicuous, and even the bones emerged. The huge body of the mountain corpse retreated several steps, which were several hundred meters. It slowly lowered its head and found that the collarbone was actually scorched by the thunder fist, and the blood turned into a waterfall and poured down. When fighting with ZHU Meng and others before, the mountain corpse did suffer a lot of injuries, but it was never like now that a big hole was chiseled on the chest that was bleeding like a waterfall. It clearly remembered that the human who was injured in its position before had been slapped to death by it on a mountainside. Ugh. Ugh. The mountain corpse was slapped to death with a slap, even if it was slightly injured, let alone now that such a big hole was chiseled out. Putting aside whether it hurts or not, its majesty has obviously been challenged to the greatest extent. The violent roar was like a bolt from the blue. Its eyes stared directly at Tangmao, as if it would not stop until it killed him. Its giant body jumped up and slapped Tangmao in the air. The moment he jumped up, the whole earth shook slightly. Tangmao understood from the thunderous collision just now that the terrifying power of the mountain corpse was such that, even if he was demonized, he would not be its opponent at all. So when the mountain corpse slapped him, Tangmao immediately used space magic to avoid its attack. Sure, this slap was like a gust of wind, blowing past. Although it slapped the air, the mountain corpse had a clear grasp of the momentum. Boom. Just as he landed on the ground, thunder suddenly fell from the sky and struck his huge body. This time, the bombardment hit a place that was not injured. After the thunder blast, the mountain corpse was not hurt at all. Tangmao looked at the scene in front of him with a confused face, cursing, "Damn, this bastard is so thick-skinned." Chapter 160 The Undefeated Devil. Boom. The moment the huge body fell to the ground, the nearby undead were killed and injured again. Boom. The mountain corpse watched his people on the ground die like this. Somewhat embarrassed, he raised his head and faced the thick cloud of corpses floating above his head. He took a deep breath, and the cloud made a thunderous sound, and all of it was poured into the lungs of the mountain corpse. it can be seen that the chest of the mountain corpse gradually swelled up, and the air became thinner because of this guy's terrible deep breath. If it was ejected with this accumulated power, it could almost destroy a mountain in an instant. Seeing this, Tang Mao also began to accumulate power. At this time, he had no chance to hide, because Tang Mao knew that the target of the mountain corpse this time was not himself. Although this dog thing looked stupid, it was still quite smart when it realized its disadvantages. It was still the dark blue ice and blue flames as before, with 2 strong and powerful arms, 1 flame girl, and 1 snow girl. When the mountain corpse and Tang Mao were accumulating power, the undead seemed to have their brains, and began to retreat far away. At the barrier of the inner city wall of the ancient capital, several superclass mages and guard mages who had recovered a little, plus some mages with light, water, and earth defense magic, stood at the front at the same time. Everyone knew that the bombardment between the mountain corpse and Tang Mao was absolutely devastating. In the open space in front of the ancient capital, the mountain corpse had jumped to less than a few kilometers away from the north city. The swollen chest began to swell, and the throat and mouth completely turned into a death cave. The raging black wind rolled out violently and rumbled towards the inner city barrier. Tang Mao stayed directly in front of the barrier of the inner city wall. The Kingluan fire phoenix condensed by ice and blue fire also flew out directly. The black wind was so powerful that the remains of the cities within a few kilometers of the outer city were swept into the air. Even the undead army of the mountain corpse was not spared. The dead wind was fierce, like thousands of black slender willow blades stirring wildly. Similarly, the blue phoenix condensed by ice and fire released from the inner city wall melted half of the undead and froze the other half. However, this was only the residual power of the 2 elemental energies. When the black wind of the mountain corpse collided with the blue phoenix containing 2 element, with a boom, like a forbidden spell, the earth directly lifted up several layers of soil and turned everything into nothing. The energy of the black wind did not last too long and was completely refined by the blue phoenix. Without the obstruction of the black wind, the phoenix hit the mountain corpse with undiminished momentum. After the attack, the sun-like brilliance fell on the grey inner city. There was no cold, no dampness, and no dead corpses scattered outside. Even the most terrifying mountain corpses were blasted several kilometers away. People's faces were filled with shock and long suppressed ecstasy. God bless the ancient capital. This is God bless the ancient capital. Finally someone can stand up to fight against the mountain corpse. At this moment, whether it is a military mage, the guard mage, or the high-level bosses, they are all surprised. Oh. However, the surprise did not last for a minute, and the broken mountain corpse in the distance, bleeding everywhere, was heard to stand up again. Moreover, his body was still covered with flames and frozen ice. The 1,000-year-old corpse roared, and his pupils stared at Tang Mao. How could he have thought that his head of the 8 directions dead army would be beaten like this by such a small thing? Where did this thing come from? And it actually hindered the pace of its undead kingdom. The mountain corpse roared, but it did not immediately attack Tang Mao. As the supreme corpse monarch, it had countless corpse generals and corpse ministers at its disposal. Even if these things could not solve this monster that came out of nowhere, they could be consumed while it was adjusting its breath. Corpse ministers of various strange shapes immediately stood up, most of which were meat-mound corpse ministers. Their fat bodies were equivalent to a heavy building, and their wide mouths kept chewing something, and they kept spitting out some skulls. Meat-mound corpse ministers, blood corpse ministers, and soon there were more than a dozen of these things gathered at the feet of the mountain corpse. They had ferocious faces and ferocious eyes. They completely ignored Tang Mao's terror and rushed here. Boom. Although the opponent was numerous, Tang Mao simply disdained it. He had enough spirit, was full of the power of the devil, and had absolute strength. Wanting to consume him to death, that was simply impossible. Unless the opponent has no residual soul, and cannot condense the essence. Otherwise, Tang Mao, after the demonization, will be completely undefeated, as long as he does not encounter absolute crushing. Or thunderord, and the first group of flesh mounds and blood corpses that rushed over were directly turned into ashes. Then, another burst of ice spread out, and the undead souls were instantly turned into ice sculptures, and then crackling and died. After the thunder and ice ended, fire fell from the sky. All the undead souls that stepped into the half-kilometer area around him were turned into ashes. After the thunder, ice, and fire ended, a strong wind blew, and the sandstorm-like wind directly cut the commander, who rushed over again, into pieces. Under the exertion of the 4 elemental forces, tens of thousands of undead were instantly reduced to nothing. Among them, there were even warlord-level undead and commander-level undead. Under the bombardment of Tang Mairo's magic energy, they all became slaves. Luzu couldn't close his mouth at this time. After watching the undead in front of him die one after another, he muttered, "I used to think that the demon system was a useless research, but now it seems that those people are not enough to control the power of demons. Not only that, it should be, because this guy's more perverted. Haven't you noticed?" Hunting King Duzaro looked at the battle there and said, "What did you find?" Hanji asked in confusion. He is not only born with dual systems. As soon as Duzaro said this, everyone reacted. The magic used by Tang Mairo seems to have indeed surpassed the dual system, right? Duzaro continued. Thunder system, ice system, space system, summoning system, fire system, shadow system, wind system, and demon system. Just after the elemental magic just now, he clearly saw the magic of the shadow system. Hiss. Chapter 161, The Man with 8 Departments. After the Hunting King Duzaro said this, they finally reacted. Tang Mairo is not only born with 2 magic systems, but also has 8 magic systems. When everyone was surprised to find that Tang Mairo had magic system, the mysterious grey-white man suddenly said, "President, should we go out to help?" Hanji paused, then reacted and said, "Yes, help." Although Tang Mairo's magic killed tens of thousands of undead, however, the number of undead has not decreased at all. They have all recovered some magic power, so they should not continue to watch the battle here. Then Hanji gave an order, and except for the magicians who needed to stay and the injured, everyone rushed out of the city. The guards, military mages, and hunting mages rushed out when Hanji and others flew away from the city wall. Tang Mairo used magic of several systems almost in turns. At this time, he didn't care about the essence and residual soul. As long as he could replenish energy, he would use it all at once. Under his bomber-like continuous sweep, the army of undead still continued. Although he was invincible, because of his spirit, the demonization lasted for so long, and the backlash was also very terrifying. He could feel that he began to feel dizzy from time to time. Obviously, the undefeated demon was just talk, but not really undefeated. After taking a breath, he saw the dense army of undead gathered in front of him again. The source of power of the demon system is life and soul. If this cunning mountain corpse keeps sending its corpse ministers and corpse generals as cannon fodder, he will be dragged down by it. The simplest solution at the moment is to capture the thief and the king and solve this mountain corpse first. Tang Mairo, the mountain corpse, is not immortal. As long as the undead crystal under his throat is destroyed, it can be killed. Just as Tang Mairo was panting, Zhu Meng's shout suddenly came from behind. "We are here to help you." The mysterious grey-white man also appeared outside the inner city at this time. He was suspended at a higher altitude, with 3 pairs of wind wings behind him. The wings were extremely long and majestic when they were stretched out. Although Yaoting and others are dead, it has found the vital point of the mountain corpse. The mountain corpse is an undead. It is meaningless to destroy other parts of its body. The undead barrier under its throat must be broken. President Hanji also appeared below in a white battle robe covered with blood. "Let us, the royal guards, leave these corpse ministers to us." Zhuo Feng took on the important task of the royal guards mage corps and rushed out of the barrier. In this catastrophe, the royal guards mage corps suffered heavy losses. Whether it was the chief, deputy chief, or the chief of the royal guards, all died in the outer city. Only Zhuo Feng was left with a little prestige. Behind him, there were only more than 30 people wearing purple royal guards clothes, which was indeed a world of difference compared to the entire royal guards mage corps before. Thanks to Tang Mairo's early arrival, otherwise it might be even worse. However, without them, it would be impossible for so many people to evacuate to the inner city, and it would be impossible for the 8 Directions dead king to be the most threatening person left alone, the corpse of the mountain. Although many people had evacuated long before the disaster, the ancient capital was so large that half of the people still retreated to the inner city when the disaster came. After passing the bridge of life and death, Emo Fan and the others ran wildly again and finally saw their goal. Zhang Xiaohao said happily, "Brother Fan, you can see the top of the altar. It should be the blood throne that Fangu mentioned." After all the hardships, they finally arrived here. On the way to escort them, whether it was ordinary people or guards, only a few of them might have returned. And all of them were here to give them a chance, and at the same time, give everyone in the ancient capital a chance to save their lives. I hope it's not too late. The lives of so many people, although this altar looks really scary and floating in the endless darkness, but when I think of the millions of people trapped in the dead city and about to become the grand funeral objects of the Black Church Siren, I have to go through the mountains of swords and seas of fire. When the two climbed up the last step, they were already a little tired, but at the same time, their eyes looked at the top of the altar full of white jade. Sure enough, there was a huge piece of jade in the center. The jade was red and crystal clear, with flying edges and corners, and it looked like countless swords were inserted upside down, to form an imposing throne of the king. This is the blood throne. Then the person on the blood throne must be the ancient King Aingzeng. There is indeed a person on the blood throne, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. He is wearing a black armor robe. This armor robe is obviously a thing with a long history, but it still reflects the cold light. You can even see the reflection of the somewhat humble self who is timidly approaching on the armor. I'm surprised. How did you get out of the death door room? Just as Emo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao approached, the person sitting there looked up at the two of them and spoke in a low voice. After seeing the appearance of the person sitting on the seat, Emo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao were both surprised. What's going on? Why are you sitting here? Zhang Xiaohao said in disbelief. Compared to Zhang Xiaohao's doubts, Emo Fan actually had a guess in his mind. Why can't I sit here? Fangu laughed. Emo Fan pointed at him angrily and said, "You damn bastard. There are millions of people in the ancient capital waiting to be rescued, but you actually want to become the ancient king here?" He felt that he was already very heartless, but when he saw that Fangu, this bastard, actually wanted to possess the power of the ancient king and control the army of the undead empire, he was really furious. The ancient king is gone, and what is left is only the throne, where he can command all the undead. With this power, I can dominate the world. What is this small ancient capital? Moreover, even if they die, they can become my powerful undead warriors in the end. At that time, what are the demons? Fangu stood up and said emotionally, and all these rights depend on who arrives here first, who will inherit everything of the ancient king, his white palace, the undead kingdom he created, his endless magic power, his unparalleled wisdom. Fangu's voice also revealed a strange metallic sound, which was echoing on the top of this empty altar. Emo Fan sneered, his face full of disdain. "You are worthy? You, blood. I want blood." Fangu was about to speak, but his eye sockets suddenly became empty, as if his pupils had been dug out, and a ghost would come out at any time. In an instant, Fangu was completely absorbed, and the black armor robe, after absorbing all of Fangu's life energy, floated back to the blood throne like a ghost. Obviously, there was nothing in the armor robe, but he could support himself and sit on it like a living person. Under the armor cap, there seemed to be a pair of deep red ghost eyes, staring straight at everyone here, looking through the body to the depths of the soul, and everything in the heart was easily seen through. At the same time, the altar began to move again. This is the horror of the ancient king, the greatest emperor of China. Although he is dead, he can still control this evil abyss. Calculating the time, dawn has arrived, and that was when the last space drift of the Shaoyuan was. If the ancient king wanted to revive, then his most ideal place must be the inner city. Since he wanted to become the supreme ruler of the kingdom of the dead, he would definitely not allow living people to appear in his kingdom. Once millions of people fall into the Shaoyuan, it is more than a pool of blood, it is a sea of blood, and all the living people are sacrifices. The Black Church must have learned all this in some way, so they can control the Shaoyuan as they please. Rather than saying that they are celebrating a death ceremony for themselves, it is better to say that all of this is to revive the ancestor of the undead who has been dead for more than 2,000 years. Zhang Xiaohao's eyes showed a trace of determination, and then he was about to rush towards the armor. But the moment he moved, he was pulled by Emo Fan. "Brother Fan, monkey, I know what you want to do, but When Fan was about to say something, an extremely familiar back suddenly appeared. Fan knew this familiar back, and Zhang Xiaohao also knew it. He was none other than Zhen Kong, who had once fought against Ji Kanglang single-handedly in Bo City. Chapter 162. Ying Zheng still cuts through the sky. Outside the ancient capital, with the support of Han Ji and others, the undead army was suppressed one after another, and his target was the corpse of the mountain. The corpse of the mountain, which was recovering, had no intention of fighting when he saw Tang Mao rushing towards him. If it was at its peak, he would not be afraid of Tang Mao, who had turned into a demon, if he fought alone. But unfortunately, he had been seriously injured before, and was hit by Tang Mao's tiny wound, and in the end he was seriously injured. After being seriously injured, it was almost crushed. Although it didn't die, it couldn't exert half of its original strength. Immediately, the corpse of the mountain turned around and started to run away. Looking at the running corpse of the mountain, Tang Mao was also confused and chased after it directly. At this moment, he had already felt an extremely serious backlash. After all, the demonization had lasted for nearly a day and a night. If he hadn't killed many undead, and didn't have enough residual souls to condense the spirit, he would have been beaten back to his original form and fainted. Seeing the corpse of the mountain running away, Han Ji, Zhu Meng and other superclass mages chased after it. Obviously, this time they were determined to kill it. Snow Princess's Cry, Sorrowful Ice Rain. Han Ji also completed the superclass magic under the protection of everyone. The ice rain fell, and it was unknown how many kilometers it continued. Most of them fell on the body of the corpse of the mountain, and quickly turned into solid ice crystals to cover its mountain body. The ice rain fell wildly, and the snow sealed the mountain. The violent corpse of the mountain seemed to be suppressed in this sad ice rain. The body gradually stiffened, and was gradually covered with a thick layer of crystal ice. Quick, throat. After freezing the corpse of the mountain, Han Ji shouted. When Tang Mao heard this, the 4 elemental attributes on his body instantly emerged. Although these 4 elements cannot be fused like ice and fire, the destructive power spread all over the body is not much worse than the power of ice and fire King Luan. Then, Tang Mao rushed towards the throat of the mountain corpse like a tornado. The mountain corpse also broke free from the ice in this gap. However, it was obvious that he could not escape Tang Mao's sure kill. At the same time, Zhu Meng, the mysterious grey-white man, and Uzio each released their strongest superclass magic. This time, the mountain corpse was doomed. Several destructive forces flew towards the mountain corpse at the same time. The mountain corpse had no way to escape, and its arrogant eyes were even more dead. But, suddenly, the world trembled. A strange hole appeared behind the fleeing mountain corpse, like a space black hole that sucked all the power. Whether it was Tang Mao's tornado or the superclass magic of several people, they were all absorbed into it. The others also looked pale. Seeing that the mountain corpse was about to be killed, everyone's killing moves were actually sucked away by the chaos hole that suddenly appeared. Han Ji, who was somewhat exhausted, said in horror, "What a terrible cultivation. So many of us attacked together, but we were all swallowed up. Be careful, the chaos cave will beat back our previous strength, and the power may become even stronger." The mysterious grey-white man reminded everyone. The one you should be careful of is the person on top of the mountain corpse. His aura. Han Ji raised his head, but his eyes were fixed on that person. In fact, without Han Ji's reminder, several people also understood the horror of the person on top of the mountain corpse. At this moment, the mountain corpse stopped running away. This arrogant corpse seemed to be very afraid of that person. His body slowly squatted down, and his proud head remained drooping. When everyone saw this scene, their faces were filled with shock. Let the mountain corpse kneel down. Ancient King. Han Ji looked at the man who made the corpses on the mountain kneel down. I remember seeing the portrait of the ancient king wearing a black evil armor robe when he passed away. The clothes of the man in front of him matched the historical scrolls passed down for a long time. No matter how this person looked down on everything and looked down on living things, he really didn't have the breath of a living person. Exclamation mark. Tang Mao looked at Zhen Kang on the corpse of the mountain, and he didn't relax his vigilance. Because he has always been curious about one thing. That is, the evil abyss should only be entered by the descendants of the ancient king, or by those who have the blessing of the holy spring or the earliest totem sacred beast, right? But how did Sun Kang enter? How did he get through the bridge of life and death? It was because of this that Tang Mao didn't dare to relax his vigilance at all. He was even very alert at this moment, ready to turn around and run away if the situation was not right. Suddenly, the man in the armor raised his hand. The chaos hole that absorbed all the skills of everyone appeared in front of Tang Mao. Even though he was very alert when the opponent attacked, he found that it was useless. Fortunately, it was not some terrifying skill that was thrown out from the chaos hole, but Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao, which made everyone feel relieved. Tang Mao teleported and picked up the two people in his hands. After throwing the two people to Tang Mao, the ancient king was ready to turn around. Because the distance was very close, Tang Mao said at this time, "Are you the ancient king, or?" The ancient king stopped and looked at Tang Mao, especially the familiar flame breath emanating from him. It made the ancient king feel a sense of memory. "I'm me, and no one can replace me. Make good use of this Kingluan fire, and don't let him humiliate me." Hearing the answer of the ancient king, Tang Mao said directly, "Aing Zeng, do you still remember the declaration when you proclaimed yourself emperor? Being called by name was a capital crime in ancient times." The ancient king shouted angrily, "How dare you!" Just by opening his mouth, Tang Mao felt under heavy pressure. Even the demonized him could not move at all. Tang Mao did not expect that the other party could be so terrifying. Just 2 words made him unable to move at all. However, Tang Mao said with a hard face, "The protection you said means slaughtering your people like this now?" Aing Zeng just glanced at Tang Mao, but did not respond at all. Then he turned and left. As he turned around, the mountain corpse seemed to have received some orders. He turned around and walked towards the outside of the city with big steps. Every step taken by the mountain corpse made a sound of shaking the earth, and every step taken, he would see an army of undead outside the inner city sinking into the mud inexplicably. Most of the corpse army had the ability to burrow underground. The vast sea of corpses infiltrated under the city wreckage in just a few minutes. Judging from the unusual fluctuations of the earth, these tens of thousands of corpse army were following the mountain corpse or the ancient king, and gradually went away. At the same time, in the direction of the other 3 cities, the undead army also retreated. The dense undead retreated almost in an instant. "We survived. Gone. All gone. There are no more undead, not even one. We won. We won." A cheer suddenly rose in the city. The light of dawn was already extremely bright. The dark clouds were still there, and the rain was still there, but all of this was not important. As long as the undead army was gone, the city would be saved, and they would survive. This catastrophe was also successfully survived. Chapter 163 The Undead Retreat. After the undead army left, Tang Mao had been watching the departing Aing Zeng, the man he admired. Unfortunately, no one cared about Tang Mao. At this time, because of the cheers of the crowd, no one was observing this side. Because of this, Tang Mao came to a deserted place. Then he returned to his original appearance. The moment his strength was reduced, he felt weak all over. Then with a dang, he lay on the stone slab here and fainted. Even if the remnant soul condensed more spirits, even if he had been using spirits to maintain himself, he still felt endless pain after the demonization disappeared. This backlash of pain seemed to be more terrifying than the promotion to the high-level thunder system. When Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao woke up, they saw that the ancient capital was still there, and the evil abyss had disappeared. And similarly, the undead army was nowhere to be seen, which made the 2 of them feel relieved. But when they saw where Tang Mao fainted, they hurriedly carried him on their backs, and shouted to find a healing mage. Tang Mao is here, and they are safe and sound. Why can't they feel relieved after being rescued? When Hanji and other senior executives were dancing with joy, they saw the flustered Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohao taking Tang Mao to find a healing mage, and they also hurriedly surrounded them. After the tide of undead receded, all parties could send support. Countless helicopters circled over the inner city, frequently delivering supplies to the city. Batches of builders began to rebuild the city, but in order to ensure that the undead would not attack again, they only expanded various resettlement houses within a radius of 3 kilometers around the inner city. The rain stopped on the third day, and the survivors were also resettled in temporary houses. The high walls sealed everyone inside, which at least seemed to be safer. This place is different from Bo City. Apart from living with the dead, it is still a rich land. The most important thing is that it has a history of thousands of years. No matter how strong the wind or rain is, it will not completely destroy it. The city will only be rebuilt after being riddled with holes. Most people here will not abandon this land. Tang Mao has been obsessed since the catastrophe that day, but no matter what level of healing magician, they all said that there was no problem. It was just because of exhaustion. Hanji and others didn't believe it at first, but when they saw the little porcelain doll Yanji running out to find food, they believed it. Because Tang Mao fainted, and he saved the ancient capital, Hanji and others were jointly responsible for Yanji's meals. At first, it was only responsible for Yanji. But when more than 10 days passed, and Tang Mao still didn't wake up, the snow girl also appeared once. However, she was still cold after all, and only appeared once in front of the little sister, who took care of Tang Mao, expressing a sense of existence. It is not useless. The next day, when Yanji returned to the contract space, she also brought back the ice spirit seed. Hanji and others did not announce the matter of saving the ancient capital. The main reason was that Tang Mao was unconscious, and there was no chance to announce it. As for the matter of the demon system, several bigwigs united and just perfunctorily passed it over. Tang Mao exposed his terrifying strength to save the ancient capital. Now that the ancient capital is fine, he was betrayed and became a guinea pig. Once the millions of people in the ancient capital knew about it, no matter whether it was Hanji or Zhu Meng, they would not be able to withstand the flames. Just like the current aristocratic Mu family, after learning about Mu He, they directly announced that Mu He and his family would be kicked out. Even though Mu Ningxu was extremely talented, they still kicked her out without any hesitation. As a big family, how could they be willing to lose a genius? But, would it be okay not to do this? The anger of millions of people in the ancient capital, even a big family like them, could not resist it. In addition, Tang Mao had long been known by the head of the Chinese army, and the military was protecting him. On the hunter's side, Old Man Bao, who learned about the ancient capital, also acted as a big boss behind the scenes to protect him. On the side of the Inquisition, in the end, the fact that Tang Mao possessed a demon was directly hidden. Although Seren may have known his identity, she is now like a stray dog, thinking about sneaking abroad. After the white snow, early spring is coming. Tang Mao, who had been in a coma for more than a month, finally woke up. When he woke up, he looked at everything around him, stunned, with almost no reaction. It was not until Yanji and Zhu appeared beside him that Tang Mao came back to his senses. Looking around the room, Tang Mao paused, as if he was talking to himself, or as if he was asking Zhu and Yanji, "Am I awake now?" HMM. Zhu responded, and little Yanji started talking about how long Tang Mao had been in a coma and what they ate every day. After the cute little Yanji told him everything, Tang Mao finally breathed a sigh of relief and came back to his senses. For more than a month of coma, he seemed to have lived in a dream. It was an endless dream, but also a nightmare. But when he woke up, he vaguely remembered that the huge body in the dream seemed to be the kill in itself. But Tang Mao didn't remember what it told him. After moving his tibia, Tang Mao entered his spiritual world again. When he saw that the lightning, ice, space, and summoning systems were still full of magic energy, he was relieved. At least his magic system was not compressed and downgraded, which was great. The nebula of the fire system was now complete, and the shadow system was still at the intermediate level 3. As for the wind system with dust, it was at the elementary level 3. After checking his cultivation, Tang Mao reached out and touched his legs to make sure that his parts were not missing, and he was still as powerful as ever, and then he was completely relieved. At this moment, a beautiful angel in white came in. Although she was just a healing lady, in Tang Mao's eyes at this moment, she was a beautiful angel in white. Especially the upturned part, it was almost crushing Baiting Ting and AI Tutu who had seen it that year. "Do you feel uncomfortable there?" The white-clothed lady came in and saw that Tang Mao had woken up. She was also a little dazed and asked immediately, Tang Mao shook his head subconsciously. At this moment, the snow girl next to him reminded him with disdain. Hearing the voice, Tang Mao immediately looked away from there and then said, "I'm fine. Thank you for taking care of me for more than a month. I will definitely pay you back with my body if there is a chance." After saying that, Tang Mao stood up and left the bed. He felt that his body was full of strength and he was going to release it again. When the lady in white reacted, Tang Mao had already disappeared. She even suspected that there was no one here when she came in. However, she suddenly reacted soon. "Damn, you stinky hooligan." When Tang Mao teleported away from the courtyard, he heard the curse and thought silently in his heart, "It's just AM. The time for SPS2, so the world has come. Is there anything you want to say?" Chapter 164. Predetermined team members. The spring equinox has passed, and after the last cold wave, the most beautiful season in Hangzhou has arrived. As a tourist city, Hangzhou's West Lake scenic area is crowded with people in spring. Tang Mao had just arrived in Hangzhou, and before he had time to call Tang Yu, he received calls from several big guys, including Dean Zhao. As a member of the government's internal team, the first thing he did after waking up was not to sign up. You can imagine how annoying this is. Especially in the past few days, the team is about to assemble. If Tang Mao doesn't go, he, the airborne internal team member, is likely to be disqualified. After Tang Mao responded one by one, he promised to return to the team within 3 days, so that he didn't provoke the big guys to come to Hangzhou to arrest people. After sending away a few old men, Tang Mao had time to call Tang Yu. Unfortunately, Tang Yu seemed to be still on a mission to clear out the remnants of the Black Church. The bullets that were prepared were wasted like this. Immediately, he had to rush to the Magic City. There are also benefits to having more girls. Just like now, although Tang Yu is not here, but there is still Jiao, right? Although she has been practicing hard recently and being a good guardian. But, this does not prevent Tang Mao from giving her some time to relax when he returned to the Magic City and called Munijio. From the other end of the phone, Munijio had already guessed what Tang Mao was thinking. In order to practice well, she rejected him righteously. Moreover, Munijio told Tang Mao that she would not be back during this period of time. Poor Tang Mao, he comforted his little brother all the way and said that he could start fighting when he arrived in Hangzhou. Who knew that Tang Yu was not here? When he returned to the Magic City again, Munijio saw through his true thoughts. Tang Mao thought to himself, sure enough, it's my fault that I'm too fierce and scared Jiao. After this tossing, Tang Mao returned to the apartment. Originally, he wanted to go see Lingling, but when he thought of his easily excited mood now, he decided to forget it. After all, he couldn't beat Lingling or Old Man Bao. Moreover, if he has any idea about the little Lalita, he is simply not a human being. Well, although he has never wanted to be a human being, but the power of the devil cannot be used for a year or two, so Tang Mao feels that he still has to be a little low-key in this year. After returning to the apartment, he collapsed on the bed. It was not easy to finish the matter of the ancient capital and came back. I thought I could negotiate a big deal worth hundreds of millions, but it turned out to be like this. It is somewhat disappointing, but disappointment comes quickly and goes quickly. Without a girl, I will concentrate on practicing now. Now the fire system has already felt overloaded. With Tang Mao's current strength, it is not difficult for a galaxy vein to break through to a higher level. In the battle of the ancient capital, his harvest was very rich. Almost all the skills of the current system, the stars before the middle level, have been strengthened. And the high level skills of the ice system, thunder system, and space system have been strengthened to level 4. Of course, the wind system has only strengthened 7 stars. After all, it is just a small star track. With the help of a galaxy pulse, Tang Mao easily and successfully advanced to the high-level fire system. After advancing to the high-level fire system, Tang Mao did not cause any commotion. He also mastered the power very well. Although a fire element wanted to explode after the promotion, under his suppression, no furniture or items were damaged. Feeling the flame power in his body, Tang Mao muttered, 5 system high level, who can fight with me in the school competition? After the excitement, it was a long night and a feeling of no sleep. Then Tangmao found a few cans of beer from the refrigerator. Lying on the comfortable chair on the balcony, drinking a little wine, blowing the evening breeze, and playing pleasant music on the phone next to him, this night was a little more fulfilling. The next day, Tangmao rushed to the imperial capital early in the morning. Tomorrow morning, he will report, which is already the limit for the big guys. If he is late again, it will be a bit too much. If they really come to catch me, my nose won't be a nose, and my face won't be a face, which will make me feel a little upset. Arriving in the imperial capital again, the air here is as bad as ever. The sky is covered with grey-brown things, and there is no blue sky or white clouds. However, when I think about starting my wonderful journey of sowing seeds in the world, I think about traveling around the world, looking for secret places, and chasing exotic girls. TSK, it's rare. I feel particularly happy. After all, the bullets he has accumulated for a long time can finally be released without responsibility. When a new day comes, Tangmao went to the designated gathering place early in the morning. As soon as he arrived in Tili, he immediately saw 5 old wizards with dark faces at the entrance of the competition venue. One of the short, fat, and pot-bellied instructors stared at Tangmao, who looked idle, and said unfriendly, "Are you the designated team member?" Tangmao curled his lips, and replied to this short and fat guy, "Yes, it's me." The instructor Fengli with tiger-marked forehead looked at Tangmao and felt unhappy. He said coldly, "The people above are really going too far now. Can they be so casual about the internal appointment?" Tangmao didn't care, shrugged and said with a smile, "No way, maybe I'm too good." Fengli didn't know about the ancient capital, so he was even more upset when he saw Tangmao like this. In fact, if he hadn't thought of the words of the Huajun leader, he would have kicked him out directly. But the more he saw the appearance of Tangmao, the more dissatisfied he became. Fortunately, Dean Sang smiled and said, "Okay, since you are here, go back to the team. It's a good opportunity to get to know them." Tangmao responded and walked towards the team members. After walking a few steps, he saw Zhao Manan with a showy face. "Tangmao, hahaha, I guessed you," Zhao Manan said with a smile as he walked forward. When they gathered before, he saw the name of a member who was internally appointed on the list, Tangmao. Of course, he didn't believe it at first. After all, Tangmao didn't even participate in the final selection ceremony, so it was almost impossible for him to come in. Even if he was nominated, he had to show up. However, Zhao Manan felt that it might be him. After all, he had witnessed Tangmao's terror with his own eyes. How could a pervert like him forget about the national government competition, a matter of winning glory for the country? In fact, there was a reason why Tangmao could come and not be changed from an internal appointment to a substitute. The best explanation was the matter of the ancient capital. However, it has not been announced yet, so no one knows. Chapter 165 Assembly. Tangmao didn't care about these. As long as he could get the resources as agreed beforehand, that was enough. Looking at Tangmao in front of him, with flowing golden hair, combed without a trace of disorder, still so showy, this kind of dog must not be taken with him to pick up girls. Especially in places where strength is not shown. Although he is also very handsome, Zhao Manan is rich. When he meets a vulgar foreign horse, it is almost impossible to solve it. Not bad, you kid can still get a quota. Tangmao patted Zhao Manan on the shoulder, as if he was quite surprised. What's good about it? He is just a person who relies on the huge wealth of the family behind him, and uses money to smooth over countless people to get the ticket. A sour voice floated out from the crowd. He didn't say anything against Tangmao. After all, who can be selected internally? How can it be simple? There are so many people in a team, but only 5 to 7 will actually play in the final. It's okay to give the other spots to rich guys. After all, we play for the government, so we should get the best treatment. A woman with a beauty mole on her lips said nonchalantly. Zhao Manan was extremely embarrassed by these words. In fact, he was able to become a member here, largely because of the support of their Zhao family consortium. Tangmao looked at the woman who spoke. Her fox eyes were naturally charming and extremely attractive, coupled with her perfectly proportioned figure. Tut tut. There was always a feeling of falling in love again. Although she couldn't resist Tang Yu's charm now, she could already compete with the little fox Ashiruaya. After looking at her for a few times, Tang Mao thought to himself, sure enough, there is no fox that he is not interested in. The 5 mentors also knew that in terms of strength, Zhao Manan still had some gaps with the real winners of the competition. But she is rich. Going out and showing her face would be a large amount of sponsorship. The training resources for the designated team members for a year are also thanks to the support of the families behind these rich second generations. Moreover, if you are not the richest, you really can't get into this team. You are so handsome. I don't know what the voting counselor likes. Ha ha ha. At this time, another strong man with a rough appearance said, this man is nearly 2 meters tall, and his muscles are almost visible through his clothes. He is completely a human beast. It is unknown what department he is practicing. Seeing Zhao Manan being besieged, Tang Mao admired Jiang Shaoxu's convex and curvy, and then looked at Zhao Manan and smiled. Little brother, it seems that you are not popular? The ones who spoke rudely were a well-dressed young man, the girl with a beauty mole, and the beast man. The others were indifferent. It seemed that as the girl with a beauty mole said, there were only 5 to 7 people who actually played in the game. Now there are more than 10 people in this training team, and it is inevitable that some of them rely on other means. Being handsome and rich, it's inevitable that people will talk nonsense about you. Just get used to it. Zhao Manan laughed at himself and didn't bother to care about their attitude. Patting Zhao Manan on the shoulder, Tang Mao said with a smile, don't worry, follow me, and the whole world will understand your role. At this time, Mo Fan also came over. He was a high-level fire mage after all, and he didn't waste time in the ancient capital this time, so he naturally became a team member. However, he didn't come here happily, but looked unhappy. Of course, after coming here, Mo Fan told the situation. It was because his sister Xingxia was kidnapped and went to Parthenon College to practice. After explaining the situation, Mo Fan seemed to ask for leave, and Feng Li's face became even darker. Although Mo Fan was very strong and had a great talent for dual element. However, other national teams had already started training, but they hadn't set off yet. How could he agree? Question mark? Mo Fan was also stubborn and said, if you don't let me go, I will leave. Because Mo Fan got to the top this time, based on his strength, Feng Li was not happy, but he really didn't want him to quit the team. In the end, he only gave him 7 days to settle his personal affairs. When Mo Fan was about to leave, Tang Mao asked doubtfully, the people of Parthenon are all very arrogant. Are you sure you can keep Xingxia, just based on what you said? Mo Fan said confidently, boss, I won't hide it from you. After the matter in the ancient capital was over, I also got that power. But after thinking of Tang Mao's terror, he still kept a low profile and said, although I may not be as strong as you, I can still deal with a few scumbags from Parthenon. After Mo Fan said this, Tang Mao finally understood why he felt a little familiar when he met him just now. Did this guy also awaken the demon system? And he was stronger than him, so it was like an elder meeting a younger generation? Question mark? After talking to Tang Mao, Mo Fan left. Of course, Feng Li asked him to finish his business and then find them in Zioar, but he was a substitute. After all, he was a genius who had broken through to a high level, so Feng Li naturally couldn't let him leave the team. After all, among the current students, only a few had reached the high level of magic. But it would be unreasonable not to deal with such a guy who violated the rules. Mo Fan obviously didn't care much about this. After all, his first wife was probably gone, and if his second wife was abducted, he would have nowhere to cry. Tang Mao and Zhao Manan walked towards the team and saw 2 men and women with extremely serious expressions. Glancing at the man, he felt that his mental strength seemed to be quite strong. He should be AI Tutu's brother AI Jiang Tu. He was also a designated member of the team and served as the captain. Originally, with Tang Mao's strength, he would definitely be able to challenge it. However, Tang Mao was obviously not interested in the captain. He was only interested in cultivation resources. When he came to the imperial capital, he bought another copy of the Galaxy Vein, as well as a month's supply of Snow Girl and Little Flame Lady, which was to spend all his savings. Now, he only has 4 figures in savings. Since the Star River vein is useful to him, he will buy some, if he has money. The woman is Nanju. Speaking of which, she is an old acquaintance. Nanju is as neat and tidy as ever with short hair. Her handsome appearance can easily confuse her gender. It is not that her face is angular and masculine, but her solemn temperament and majesty cover up her outstanding feminine charm. This cover up does not reduce her charm by half, but makes people want to pry open her heart. Of course, even if this short-haired girl is not bad, Tangmao still has no great interest in teasing her. After all, he still likes long hair. Moreover, a fox-like girl like Jiang Shaoxu is even the best choice. AI Jiang Tu looked at Tangmao and extended his hand to say, "Hello, my name is AI Jiang Tu, captain of the Guofu team." He was not unfamiliar with Tangmao. His sister alone had told him dozens of times. Tangmao also reported his name and then greeted Nanju, who nodded in response. At this time, Dean Song urged, "You two, hurry up and return to your respective teams. PS, elders and juniors, not bad. Well, I admit that I'm just too lazy to make a new department for MO-fan. But I can rest assured that who the protagonist is, I still have some idea in my mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 166, Pulling Muningsu into the Woods. Tangmao was a regular member, so he and Zhao Manan naturally did not have the same seat. And he naturally stood next to Jiang Shaoxu. When Jiang Fox saw Tangmao standing beside him, he flirted with her and said, "Little brother, are you interested in me?" Hearing this, Tangmao turned his head and fixed his gaze on the overdeveloped part. He nodded and replied very bluntly in a low voice, "I'm greedy for your body." Even Jiang Shaoxu, who liked to joke, was stunned for a while after hearing Tangmao's straightforward words. After all, she was always the one who teased the young men, and it was the first time she was teased. After reacting, Tangmao was already looking forward. A rare blush appeared on the little face with a beauty mole, but seeing that Tangmao's eyes had left, she just snorted in dissatisfaction. "Everyone is here. Because MO-fan asked for leave in the middle of the game, he will be demoted to a substitute player now." The instructor with tiger head pattern walked slowly and scanned the 11 people. MO-fan left because of Yi Xingxia's matter, so there are only 11 people left. This time, since MO-fan also joined and became a regular team member, the only substitutes are Muningsu and Zhao Manan. One is because of the money, and the other is because of strength. Unfortunately, she was abandoned because of Mu-hee. Fortunately, the ice crystal bow is so powerful that she got a substitute position. The regular team members are AI Jiang-tu, Nanju, Tangmao, Jiang Shaoxu, Guan Yu, Zhu Jiming, Nanrongni, Jiang Yu, and Mu Tingying. After a pause, tiger head pattern instructor Feng Li looked at the substitutes again. Muningsu and Zhao Manan said, "Because he became a substitute, as long as you two work hard, you will have the opportunity to become regular team members in the future." Hearing this, everyone looked at Muningsu and the others. Even Tangmao just realized that Muningsu was also in the team. Just now, because of Jiang Shaoxu, the little fox, he had not observed her carefully. Looking at Muningsu, even though she was in the most inconspicuous position, her stunning silver hair was still breathtakingly beautiful. Her well-proportioned skin was wrapped in a black pear flower-shaped long coat and paired with a pair of slender black princess boots. The coldness and beauty were perfectly combined, like a snowy black rose blooming in the frozen white snow, lonely, noble, and keeping people away from her, but with a fatal sexy temptation. She had a holiness that could only be admired from a distance, but also had the danger of poisonous thorns. Tangmao was slightly stunned, and then frowned, because he could feel that Muningsu seemed to be suppressing the backlash of the ice attribute in her body. Obviously, she must still not listen to him and use the ice crystal bow. Hearing Feng Li's words, Zhao Manan was obviously not very interested. After all, he came here with the great dream of sowing seeds all over the world. The girls in his own country have caused a lot of trouble, and now it's time to experience the exotic customs. However, Muningsu's cold eyes were full of heat. Obviously, being a regular team member was still very important to her. Of course, she actually felt a little incredible, and at the same time, the only memory in her heart was completely shattered. After all, Mo-fan actually gave up the opportunity to join the national government just because Yi Xingxia wanted to leave here and transfer to another school. It really made her speechless. Without paying too much attention to the two of them, Feng Li looked at everyone and said in a sonorous and powerful voice, "Your ultimate goal is to participate in the Venice Water City National Government Competition, which is also the World Academy Competition. This time, the training of various countries is not only to hope that you can have more practical experience and magic experience, but also because you need to obtain a ticket to the Venice Water City National Government Competition. There are nearly 200 countries in the world participating in this competition, and not every country is qualified to appear in the Venice Water City competition." The 5 instructors told them what they were going to say, and everyone took notes seriously. There was no grand farewell ceremony. Even the moment when the team of the national government competition that everyone was paying attention to would really set foot on the road of training was unknown. Who exactly would be the team was also completely unknown. This was true for any country. Only when the Venice Water City competition ceremony opened would these players really be shown to the world. After the 5 mentors each said a few words, everyone set out on the journey of training. Of course, before departure, their bank cards were directly frozen. Moreover, they did not receive any funding, not even the right to fly. Everything in life was taken care of by themselves. According to several mentors, this was the so-called training. Finally, after they were assigned a location, everyone was thrown into a remote fishing village. Along the way, Tang Mao did not cultivate feelings with Jiang Hili, because he could feel that it seemed that because of his presence nearby, the ice in Muningsu's body was about to reach the point where it could not be suppressed. However, when he wanted to help her, he was rejected. It seemed that she did not want everyone to notice the backlash in her body, afraid of losing the opportunity to be a substitute. Seeing that he was about to give up, Tang Mao stopped and pulled her towards the nearby grove. "You go first. I'll talk to Sister Zhu about some private matters, and I'll catch up with you later." Being pulled by Tang Mao, Muningsu had almost no strength to resist. Even if she wanted to refuse, it was useless. Ai Jiangtu and the others were all confused when they saw Tang Mao suddenly taking Muningsu to the grove. What kind of situation is this? Want to commit a crime in broad daylight? When Ai Jiangtu was about to speak, Tang Mao seemed to notice something and said, "Ai Jiangtu, I can guarantee with my personality that it's not what you think. It's just a private matter." Ai Jiangtu looked unconvinced, but Nanju beside him shook her head, indicating that it was okay. She knew that, although Tang Mao was a SP, he would not force anyone. Although Muningsu refused verbally, she was still willing to be pulled away by Tang Mao, which obviously was not forced. Seeing that Nanju had indicated that everything was fine, and that Ai Tutu and Tang Mao had been renting the house together for so long without any loss, Ai Jiangtu had no choice but to give up. This was mainly because Muningsu did not resist, otherwise he naturally could not sit idly by. Immediately, Ai Jiangtu looked at the others and said, "Then let's go first." Unlike Nanju, Jiang Shaoxu did not know Tang Mao and had never met him. Moreover, this guy was flirting right after they met. Now he was dragging a beautiful ice-cold beauty like Muningsu into the forest. It felt a little wrong. Let Ningsu go. Chapter 167 Treatment. However, before Jiang Shaoxu could speak, Guan Yu, who had been secretly in love with Muningsu for a long time, could not bear to watch. He saw his goddess being dragged into the grove like this. If he could remain indifferent, how could he still have hope? Moreover, he did not want to miss this kind of heroic rescue. However, Guan Yu's roar did not stop Tang Mao. Instead, he continued to walk inside. Seeing that the other party ignored him, Guan Yu was about to take action. While drawing the star map, he was thinking beautifully in his heart that the chance to win the favor of the goddess was not far away. But at the moment he just drew it, before Ai Jiangtu could stop him, he suddenly felt the compression of space. Guan Yu was restricted and immediately turned his head and looked at AI Jiang 2 with difficulty. After all, the only space mage he knew was AI Jiang 2. However, AI Jiang 2 obviously did not take action, and he was stunned at this time when he was about to speak to stop him. AI Jiang 2 had only heard that Tang Mao was talented and born with dual element, but he had never known him. Moreover, this intermediate magic was released so quickly, which obviously means that the opponent's space magic is stronger than his. AI Jiang 2 was stunned, and the other few people were also stunned. Because, no matter who is present, there is no way to depict the intermediate magic so quickly, right? At first, they thought that Tang Mao, the member who was selected without participating in the competition, was a strong backstage. Now it seems that this is not the case. Just when several people were in a daze, Tang Mao and Mu Ningxu had disappeared. No one knew where they went. Guan Yu was also relieved at this time. Although he was surprised, it was a chance to be a hero and save the beauty. He still didn't want to give up. But when he was about to enter the forest, a huge black tiger suddenly emerged. Not only that, there was a little lolly sitting on the head of the black tiger. When Guan Yu saw the black giant tiger that appeared, he instantly became timid because the opponent was at the commander level. Moreover, it seemed that he was not the commander who had just been promoted. When Jiang Yu from the Demon Encyclopedia saw Zhao Hei, he was stunned for a moment, his legs went weak, and he exclaimed, "Shadow Demon Tiger. Oh my god, how could there be a Shadow Demon Tiger here?" The rest of the people were also confused, only Zhao Manan was not panicking. He knew something about Zhao Bei's promotion. Although he had never seen it, he knew Zhao Zu knew. When AI Jiang 2 saw Zhao Hei appear, he was even about to draw a star map. But Jiang Shaoxu hurriedly said, "No, don't do it." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. However, Jiang Shaoxu was a spiritual mage, and since she said so, she must have her reasons. Everyone looked ready, but no one dared to take action. Jiang Shaoxu then said, "They have no ill intentions, don't provoke them." When they heard them, they finally noticed the little lolly on the head of the Shadow Demon Tiger. If it weren't for its own nice attribute decoration, if it was changed into clothes, they would have regarded it as a little lolly. But after a closer look, it was discovered that the magical energy emanating from this little girl was not much worse than that of the Shadow Demon Tiger. "What is this?" Nanju, who was next to Jiang Yu, asked in confusion. Jiang Yu's mouth twitched slightly. This was the first time he had encountered such a demon. "This is a dulling of the ice element, the ice snow girl." Just when several people were puzzled, Zhao Manan said with full of style. Moreover, he did not seem to be afraid of the two commander level demons. He even walked in front of everyone. Nanju asked in confusion, "How do you know?" Zhao Manan smiled slightly and said, "Because they are all Tang Mao's contracted beasts." As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was shocked. At this time, Tang Mao, who had pulled Mu Ningxu into the forest, had let her go. Then his own nice attribute domain spread out and began to help Mu Ningxu suppress the restless ice crystal breaking bow in her body. Mu Ningxu refused at first. After all, she didn't want others to notice that she was not right, nor did she want to have any bad influence on Tang Mao. Of course, she just didn't want Tang Mao to suffer because of Mu He and her current situation. But Tang Mao ignored her resistance and directly infused her with the power of ice attribute. "You shut up. I told you to shut up." The moment Tang Mao's power was injected into her body, the ice crystal breaking bow immediately became obedient. With a little strength, Mu Ningxu wanted to speak to stop Tang Mao, but every time she opened her mouth, she was stopped by Tang Mao's scolding. More than 10 minutes later, the backlash in Mu Ningxu's body had been suppressed by half, and she could move. The white jade hand supported the soft body, and just when she stood up, she wanted Tang Mao to stop, but was held down again. "Thank you, that's enough. Don't worry about me, it's okay. Stay." Mu Ningxu kindly let Tang Mao leave, but this man directly held her down and blocked her soft lips. Isn't that too much? Although she was kissed by Fan when she was a child, it was just a mouth-to-mouth kiss. After all, how can a child have so many thoughts? And Tang Mao didn't seem to be distracting her at all. He was just possessing her. Muningsu wanted to push him away, but how could she do it with her strength? She wanted to draw a star map to scare Tangmao, but she thought of Tangmao saving her several times, and this time he didn't care about her sensitive identity now. In front of so many people, she couldn't do it after all. Of course, the most important thing is that her mind is already in chaos at the moment. It can be said that she let Tangmao do whatever he wants. The ice crystal bow was suppressed, and her magic ability was also recovering rapidly. It seemed that nothing happened to her body suddenly. Tangmao was also stunned. He didn't know that a kiss could have such an effect. Why did he bother with that before? In fact, he just saw Muningsu trying to refuse his help, so he was ready to peck her lightly, to show that he had received the reward. However, who would have thought that this touch was like a spell? When Muningsu noticed it, she came back to her senses. Unable to push him away, Muningsu bit him directly in a hurry. He immediately let go of Muningsu! Muningsu, who was released, had a blush on her originally cold cheeks. Then she turned her head and looked to the side. I'm fine now. Chapter 168, just over 10 minutes. Tangmao paused, but didn't mean to back away. It's not his fault. Muningsu's current appearance made both Ashiruaya, the coquettish woman, and Jiang Shaoxu feel a little defeated. Her cold charm was what made him feel agitated. Then, Tangmao stretched out his hand to straighten her face, and leaned his head over. Muningsu was stunned. She put her hand on Tangmao's chest, and pushed him away. Her expression was also much colder. Looking at Muningsu's cold eyes, Tangmao thought to himself, damn it, it's careless. Then he looked at Muningsu and said, I don't mean to flirt with you, but you were so beautiful just now that I couldn't help it. Muningsu's mood did not change much, but she said coldly, we are not suitable. Of course, if Tangmao looked carefully, he would still find that Muningsu had nowhere to put her hands behind her back at this time. I think it's very suitable. Muningsu was stunned, and then said firmly, you don't understand my current situation. Others are avoiding me, and my father, like they are avoiding viruses. Why do you still stick to me, with your qualifications in the future? If it's because of the matter of Muhi and Gudu, then you don't have to do this. Tangmao interrupted Muningsu without waiting for her to finish. What do you mean you? The matter in Gudu was done by Muhi. What does it have to do with you? Muningsu felt lost for a while, and then said, but he is my uncle. Oh, then I'll tell you one thing. He was caught by me. Although I didn't kill him personally, his death was related to me. Hearing this, Muningsu looked at Tangmao in disbelief. You are also in Gudu catastrophe? Tangmao responded without any modesty. I'm the great benefactor of the entire Gudu. Muningsu obviously didn't believe it. After all, the Gudu catastrophe was said to have millions of undead troops. Although she didn't experience it personally, she could guess what a terrible scene it was just by hearing about it. Moreover, several superclass mages died. Even if Tangmao was gifted and had the soul seed domain, how could a high-level mage save the ancient capital when many superclass mages had died? Of course, whether the ancient capital survived the catastrophe is still a mystery. So far, no news has been revealed. However, Muningsu really couldn't believe that it was Tangmao who saved the ancient capital. Seeing that Muningsu didn't believe it, Tangmao didn't care. At least the embarrassing situation was transferred. Forget it, you will understand later. Also, the ice crystal breaking bow is not allowed to be used before it reaches a high level. After saying this, Tangmao turned around and left with confidence. He actually knew that Muningsu was still frozen at the moment. However, it was clear that it was also tempting. Tangmao was not good at self-control, so it couldn't be blamed entirely on him. Who asked Muningsu to be so beautiful that she was freezing snow as skin, ice as bones? 3,000 silver threads, the city and the country are really well deserved. Muningsu looked at Tangmao's back as he left, and she felt a strange feeling in her heart. However, in just a moment, she suddenly reacted. She seemed to have been kissed with tongue just now! Most importantly, she felt uncomfortable, as if she had been pinched somewhere! And that damn man, as if nothing had happened, diverted her attention and left. Rarely, Muningsu, a girl who was indifferent to everything, might have been angry and cursed. Stinky Zero hooligan, of course. It was actually quite weird. Obviously, she was taken advantage of, but she kept comforting herself in her heart. He was just saving herself. When Tang Mao came out, AI Jiangtu and the others were still standing here, with no intention of moving at all. After all, two powerful commanders were staring at them all the time, and even if there was no danger, the deterrent power was not something that a mid-level mage could resist. After all, not everyone was called Tang Mao. At this time, after seeing Tang Mao come out, the Shadow Demon Tiger and the little Snow Girl all returned to their respective spaces. After seeing Tang Mao take down two commander level demons, they all breathed a sigh of relief, and then some of them sat down on the ground, because their legs were weak. The only ones standing were AI Jiangtu, a high level mage, Nanju, who was used to seeing demons, Jiang Shaoxu, a psychic, and Zhao Manayan, who knew the truth. While the others were either terrified or shocked, Jiang Shaoxu smiled coquettishly and said, "Oh, it only took more than 10 minutes to finish, so useless." In response to her teasing, Tang Mao responded nonchalantly, "Fortunately, if it were you, maybe I could last longer." You. Jiang Shaoxu pouted her little mouth. She was obviously an attractive and coquettish fox, but she could still show a cute feeling. It was a little hard for Tang Mao to accept. He thought, this little coquettish oof must be taken down. At this time, Muningsu also came out. Compared with just now, she looked much better now. Seeing her ruddy face, even Nanju, who believed that Tang Mao was not a perverted person, looked at him with some doubt. AI Jiangtu even said directly, "Muningsu, if you are bullied, you can tell me." Obviously, he also felt some changes in Muningsu. When AI Jiangtu asked Muningsu, Tang Mao remained indifferent, while Jiang Shaoxu quietly observed Tang Mao and glanced at Muningsu. Muningsu shook her head. "No. He just told me some private things just now." Jiang Shaoxu was sure that Tang Mao did not do that to Muningsu, because when she said this, there was no change in her emotions, but the following words were somewhat watery. And seeing that Tang Mao looked like nothing happened, she was sure that this dog man was not lying. He did not become a beast, but chose to be worse than a beast. This made Jiang Shaoxu a little curious. He was so perverted, and he dragged Muningsu in, but he really didn't do that. At the same time, she was also very curious about Tang Mao's background. She didn't remember that there was such a pair in that big family. She once thought that the most outstanding pair in the country was only AI Jiangtu, but the previous space magic and summoning system surprised her. Especially the summoning system, which was the strongest in the same level. Moreover, Tang Mao's two summoned pets actually reached the commander level. It can almost be said that the whole team is not an opponent. After all, it is a one-year team. Now she can't figure it out, and she is too lazy to think about it. She said, "They have nothing. I can be sure. P.S. Men, if they don't have any ideas, when they see girls, they are mostly impotent. So when I'm in love, like appears in the book, don't rush to complain. It's not an immediate recommendation. In addition, please subscribe. I hope that those who support the book will be automatically subscribed. If the average subscription is less than 500, it's really impossible to be liver. After all, I also need to eat. Finally, thanks, I'm so poor. Luxa and the book friend with the last number 585 for the large reward. I have more time to make up for it. Chapter 169 asking for directions. As Jiang Shaoxu spoke, AI Jiangtu and the others stopped questioning. After all, she was a spiritual mage, so it was useful for this verification. This woman liked to laugh and tease men. Her every move revealed her charm and enchantment. Others didn't know her background, but AI Jiangtu knew it very well. So since she had spoken, there was nothing to question. You guys, how can you be so dirty-minded? Even if I'm not a serious gentleman, I wouldn't force you to do something. And, would I do it in front of so many of you? After Jiang Shaoxu proved his innocence, Tang Mao said in a calm voice. AI Jiangtu obviously didn't want to waste time on this little episode. He turned around and said, "Don't say it anymore. Let's go to the nearby fishing village to ask people first." He didn't want to waste time here. As for transportation, AI Jiang-2 didn't even think about it. After all, their identities have been frozen. Now that the more developed means of transportation in the country require ID cards, they are now illegal immigrants. They have to avoid the police, no matter what they do. If they are really checked, they have to ask the government to come and take them away. Once they do this, they will fail in their training. The consequences of failure in training are very serious, because the government team is not just their team, there are other alternative teams. Once their team fails in training, someone from the alternative team will take over. So, this team will definitely have replacement personnel. Now the only place where they can show their identities is the Kakufu Pavilion in Tokyo, Japan. This is their first destination. AI Jiang-2 is the captain appointed by the 5 mentors, and everyone has to obey his arrangements. As soon as AI Jiang-2 spoke, everyone stopped talking and walked towards the backward fishing village. As for Guanyu, who was about to take action just now, he also became honest at this moment. There is no way he can't be dishonest. Tang Mao's 2 summon beasts are both high level, and it will take only a few minutes to deal with him. However, at least his goddess was not defiled. They really knew each other, which was a blessing in disguise. The small fishing village was not far away. After passing through the small woods, you could see more than a dozen low old houses made of wood and stone. They were eroded by the sea breeze for many years, making them look a bit damp. A group of 11 people entered the fishing village in such a mighty manner. As a result, there were not as many people in the fishing village as their group. The children squatting in the muddy crotch by the door probably had never seen so many young and beautiful big brothers and sisters. They blinked their eyes and ran back to the house as soon as everyone approached and peeked in at the window. "It's you bastards again. Don't think that we are easy to bully because we are poor and uneducated. Let me tell you, we will not move away, and this old man is not a vegetarian." An old man in wooden clogs rushed out in a dark suit, holding a large oar that he usually used for rowing. The old fisherman was standing in a horse stance, his eyes sparkling. Although he was not a magician, his capable and powerful hands tightly grasped the big oar, as if he was ready to fight with them. As if inspired by the old fisherman, several other young people also came out holding things. In the end, there were only 7 or 8 of them, and the Linoop was not as large as their group of invaders. What was more interesting was that the young village men seemed to have never seen such a beautiful girl before, and their eyes were straight. It seemed that even their village belle was not as beautiful as the girl in front of them. They almost forgot what the village belle looked like. Her skin was as white as jade, her legs were so beautiful, her waist was thin, and her face was. "Uncle, is there any misunderstanding? This is our first time here, and we just want to ask something," AI Jiang-2 said. "We are from the World Tour Club. We follow this coastline to the north end. We come here to ask for directions and where there is a larger port." Nanju reacted quickly and explained immediately. "World Tour Club? What is this?" the old fisherman asked in confusion. Hearing this, several people were a little confused. In this day and age, is there anyone who doesn't know about the World Tour Club? Are mobile phones just decorations? "Uncle, it's actually a group of men and women who like to travel, and they go on adventures around the world together. Now city people like to play this, saying that it's for excitement. Fortunately, the village is not full of old men who don't play with mobile phones. There are still some young people who understand the internet." "Oh, then you are really not from the real estate industry?" asked the old fisherman. The old fisherman was not a bad guy who blocked the road and robbed people. He just didn't want these people to come to the village to trick them into leaving the place where their ancestors lived for generations. "Of course not. Do we look so rustic?" Beauty mole Jiang Shaoxu laughed and deliberately threw a coquettish eye at the young men. The young men immediately swallowed their saliva wildly, and their eyes seemed to fly to Jiang Shaoxu's low groove that was deliberately exposed to the air. Not to mention the young men, even Tang Mao's eyes would stay on her groove from time to time. After all, Jiang Shaoxu really has something. Moreover, her breasts are eye-catching, and her charming gestures always give people an impulse. For example, 10 years of labor reform, cough cough, exclamation mark. "Well, I'm sorry, you are asking about the big port, right? Walk 8 or 9 miles along the reef, and after passing the big bay, you will see the bird port. The old fisherman said apologetically when he saw that he had recognized the wrong person. Thank you. Let's go to the big port quickly, before it gets dark. Nanju expressed his gratitude and then spoke again. Everyone nodded and walked directly to the place where the old fisherman pointed. When the young people in several villages saw this group of people leaving, they couldn't help but follow them out to sea, and they couldn't take their eyes off the bouncing buttocks. Uncle, we forgot to tell them that there are sea monsters here. The young man who had just started to explain to the few people suddenly remembered the sea monster and spoke hurriedly. Yes, hurry up and warn them. The old fisherman had just strongly accused someone. He was a typical village old man, so he had no bad intentions, so he quickly ordered. I'll go. I run fast. I'll go. Just as several young men were scrambling for it, the guy who spoke had already run out. Not long after Tang Mao and his friends left the fishing village, they were heading towards the port when the big boy who had just explained to them ran over here breathlessly. Zhao Manan and Muning Su, who were at the end of the team, happened to notice him. Zhao Manan shouted, and the others stopped. Chapter 170, Vixen. He finally caught up with Zhao Manan and the other two who were walking in the team, but the moment he saw Muning Su, he was stunned. After all, this woman was like a fairy. Even when he stopped there to take a deep breath, he would look at Muning Su from time to time. You guys are really fast. I've been chasing you for a long time. When the young man saw Muning Su's cold eyes looking at him, he lowered his head quickly, as if he was embarrassed to be discovered. He remembered the important matter and hurriedly spoke. Zhao Manan smiled. He didn't think it was strange to hear what the team said. They were all mages. Although they were just walking normally, they were actually much faster than normal people. Then he looked at the boy who had just arrived curiously, wondering, what's wrong? The young man was still panting, and after a pause he said, it's like this. Recently, there have been reports from other places that there are sea monsters on the coast, and many places have been damaged. So when you are on your way, it's best to stay a little further away from the coastline, so that you can run away if you see a sea monster. Isn't this Angie? How could there be a sea monster? Jiang Shaoxu, a little fox, came over, stroked the beauty mole on the side of her mouth, and deliberately teased the young man, and spit at him. The young man had recovered from his embarrassment, but he didn't look at Jiang Shaoxu, but responded, it happened a while ago, but I don't know why the higher-ups never sent anyone to get rid of the monster. I heard that several people from the fishing village next door went fishing, and didn't come back. We are not very afraid of sea monsters. Brother, why don't you lead the way for us, and send us to the port? Sister, I will reward you. Jiang Shaoxu tapped the big boy's shoulder with her finger, and said with a smile, this. The big boy hesitated for a while, but finally couldn't resist Jiang Hula's temptation, nodded and said, okay, anyway, the village chief has stopped us from going out to sea to fish, and there is nothing to do in the village. When I think of these fishermen who rely on fishing for a living, how can they live without fishing? Jiang Shaoxu asked again, if you don't fish, what do you eat? The young man said helplessly, eat the stock, but it is estimated that it will not last for a few months. So this time, when I go to Phenio City, I can also ask when the superiors will get rid of the sea monsters that are roaming along the coast. If the sea monsters are not solved, we dare not go out to sea to fish. What do you need the superiors for? You help your sister to lead the way, and your sister will help you get rid of the sea monsters. It's a matter of waving your hands. Haha. Jiang Shaoxu said with a charming smile. I will lead you the way, but forget about the sea monster. It's not something that ordinary people can deal with. I heard from Dahu in the next village that the sea monster is 4 or 5 tall and can eat half of our fishing boat in one bite. It's very scary. The young man said seriously. In his opinion, they were just ordinary young men and women who were traveling for adventure. As they walked along, they learned that the other party was named Liu Meng, a typical simple boy who didn't often leave the village. It seemed that he had not been to school for a few years and had started to learn fishing with his family. In fact, the coastal areas were not very rich. There were many poor fishing villages, and the transportation and sea routes were inconvenient, so they were also very closed. This was why the village chief didn't know what wild group tourism was. The old village chief had lived here all his life and had never left. Along the way, although Liu Meng looked very simple, his eyes were actually more of a peeping Muningsu. Of course, there was no evil in his eyes. Maybe he had simply never seen such a beautiful girl. Jiang Shaoxu was very unhappy because she felt that with her looks, she could easily make this country boy infatuated. Of course, she just loved to play and simply liked the feeling of teasing. It was not that she really fell in love with a silly boy at first sight. However, Liu Meng kept secretly staring at Muningsu along the way, which aroused her dissatisfaction. I heard that you city people have poor physiques and feel tired after walking 3 or 4 miles. I didn't expect you to be so strong. I was out of breath, but you were fine and didn't sweat a drop. Liu Meng was completely convinced after walking all the way. Not to mention the young men. Even the delicate girls in the team didn't even breathe. I don't know why the villagers always say that city people are delicate. This group of people has better physical strength than themselves. Have you never heard of a mage? Jiang Shaoxu was really stubborn. He clearly wanted to make this young man crazy, so he was happy to talk to him and tease him. Master, of course I've heard of it. A few years ago, someone in our village was admitted to the magic high school. It was a big deal. There were lights and decorations, and he married Lan He, who we all thought was the most beautiful. My uncle also said that, if he became a wizard, he could basically marry any girl in the town he liked. Liu Meng said with great joy, and it was obvious that he admired the wizard very much. Is the Lan He you mentioned as pretty as me? Jiang Shaoxu pouted his lips, revealing a charming look. Liu Meng had never seen a woman with such beautiful permed hair talking to him so close. His dark face couldn't help but blush, and he whispered, not at all. I'm not as good as her? Jiang Shaoxu moved closer and asked knowingly with a breath as sweet as orchid. She's not as good as you. Liu Meng responded with a stutter. Facing Jiang Shaoxu's teasing, he really couldn't resist it. Liu Meng, let me ask you, if I'm also a magician, and a very powerful one, wouldn't I be able to pick any man in your town? Jiang Shaoxu continued to tease this simple and honest man. Liu Meng didn't know how to answer. When Liu Meng was confused, Jiang Shaoxu's vixen-like laughter came again. Liu Meng was so nervous that he couldn't raise his head, but he wanted to sneak a few glances. After all, he was a simple mountain man. How could he resist the teasing of this vixen? Liu Meng was obviously completely trapped. 8 or 9 miles. In fact, it would take some time to walk. Liu Meng didn't know that this group of people were all powerful magicians, and even their ordinary steps were hidden with magic of different attributes, so the steps were particularly fast. After walking all the way, Liu Meng was already exhausted, and Jiang still felt that everyone was wasting time. Fortunately, the road was not easy to walk, and Liu Meng, a tool man, was needed to lead the way, otherwise Liu Meng would have been left behind. After walking for most of the day, we finally saw the bay that the old fisherman had mentioned. Chapter 171 Asuka City. This bay is very beautiful, but due to planning issues, there are many places with weeds. However, it still does not affect its scenery. There are already some buildings in the depths of the bay. They are all high-rise buildings that rise from the ground and are built in the same arc as the bay. They perfectly interpret the sea view suites that real estate developers often promote. These buildings should have been built not long ago. The surroundings are a bit messy. Occasionally, some engineering teams can be seen doing some processing, but judging from the location and the development trend, they will be copied to a very high price in the future. Fumio City should be a second tier or third tier city. It is much larger than Bo City, but it cannot be compared with metropolises such as Hangzhou, Shanghai, Gudu, and Guangzhou. That's the larger port you are looking for. Liu Meng pointed to the He River that extends from the sea to the city. This Fumio port is obviously also an important hub for trade. Many large tonnage ships can be seen sailing. The He River is also very wide, leading directly to the vast ocean. Looking at the other end of the He River, it seems to go straight inland. This He River is not small. Logically, this city should be as big as a big city, but it looks a bit cramped. Zhao Manan said. As a man of the Zao consortium, Zao Manan can often see through things related to development and wealth at a glance. So it is not that rich sons are useless. Logically speaking, with such a port, it is unlikely that the area within a radius of 1 or 200 kilometers is poor. Why is it that along the way, whether it is the villages, towns or the core Phenio city, they are far less prosperous than he has? Tang Mao shrugged and said, I guess the municipal administration is just mediocre. Impossible. With such a good port, the municipal administration can't be as bad as it is now. If I had money, I would immediately invest in this port, and a big investment. Buy the land. Let alone 10 years, give it 3 to 5 years, and you will definitely make a fortune. In fact, you can even buy this city. Zao Manan said seriously. TSK, you are worthy of being from the Zao group. You bought a city directly. Zhu Jiming said with a look of sarcasm. Although he looks big and strong, he is very narrow-minded. It seems that there are always things that he doesn't like, especially Zao Manan, who was stuffed with money. Business opportunities, do you understand? Zao Manan snorted coldly, his eyes full of disdain. Don't talk so much, go to the port and ask if there are any ships going to Japan. AI Jiang interrupted everyone's conversation and walked to the front of the team. It's useless to have a ship. Others will definitely check our identities. Zhu Jiming said. Tang Mao also said with disdain, do you think everyone is as stupid as you? Hearing this, the male ancestor Jiming's face turned green, and he said with dissatisfaction, then do you have a solution? Although he was very angry, he had seen the horror of Tang Mao's 2 contracted beasts, so he really didn't have the temper to offend Tang Mao. After all, he would definitely be the one to be dealt with in the end. Although the status of the Zhu family was not low, he didn't know Tang Mao at all, and he was not as strong as him, so he naturally wouldn't choose to be beaten. Tang Mao, do you have any way to solve the problem of our identity? AI Jiang also turned his head and asked. We are mages, and everyone always has troubles that cannot be solved. As mages, we can often help others solve them. I think there is no reason for such a large port city to be smooth and happy for everyone. We help people do things, and that person is responsible for sending us to Japan. It's that simple. After all, he is also a hunting mage, and he is still clear about taking money from people and eliminating disasters for them. They have no money in their hands, so helping people solve their problems is obviously the best choice. It's easy for you to say that. Who would be so kind to send people like us who don't even have an identity to Japan? Smuggling is a crime. Zhu Jiming said with a curled lip. Tang Mao had just made him lose face, so he was naturally very dissatisfied with Tang Mao. Tang Mao smiled and said, so, what we are going to do is naturally something that ordinary people can't do. Also, a brain is a good thing. I hope you can have one too. You. Zhu Jiming was a little angry and even wanted to fight if he didn't know he couldn't beat him. However, he finally held back. Seeing Zhu Jiming holding back, Tang Mao said as he passed by him, don't look at me with a constipated look on your face. You should be glad for your choice. Otherwise, the moment before you make a move, I will make you lie on the ground immediately. In the center of Phenio City stands a magnificent twin towers built entirely of diamond glass. This is the headquarters of the famous Lin Group in Phenio City. It can be said that half of the new buildings in this city are built by them. They are simply city tycoons. When Tang Mao and his group just arrived here, they saw a female secretary walking out of the lobby with an endocrine disorder on her face. The female secretary seemed to have seen them too. She saw a group of young people who were dressed well. They were sitting on the sofa and didn't know what they were talking about. However, judging from their temperament, they should be either rich or noble. However, there was an obvious native among them. Not only was he dark, but he was also wearing whitish jeans and his worn-out sneakers were so black that they could leave mud marks on the lobby. Although the female secretary had just been scolded by her boss, she still knew that some people were not people she could mess with. However, because the mayor was coming later, she had to avoid them. Immediately, the female secretary called a security guard and said, go ask them what they do. The security guard ran over obediently and soon ran back. saying attentively, "They said the owner of this building is in trouble, and they are here to solve the trouble." What the hell? The female secretary heard, and her mood, which was not very good to begin with, became even worse. It's a fortune teller to be with this group of young people. It's ridiculous to play such a bloody disaster. He then asked them if they dare to go and kill the sea monsters. Really, they are a bunch of people who have nothing better to do. The female secretary said. This sounded like an angry remark, but the security guard really went. And soon the security guard came back and excitedly told the female secretary they said they could. The female secretary frowned immediately after hearing this. She took a closer look at the group of people and felt that they did not look like the kind of charlatans. While the female secretary was still confused, a handsome young man with golden hair came over with a sunny smile. The female secretary was stunned by that, and her heart was inevitably moved. After all, this is a world that values appearance. Men like beautiful women, and girls also like handsome men. Maybe because of Zao Manan's 13-year-old face, the two of them soon started chatting. Chapter 172 Going Out to Sea. After Zao Manan's small talk, the female secretary led the 13 people to the top floor, where her boss was. After learning the whole story, Lin Junxin looked at the group of young-looking mages with a sharp gaze. I hope you don't waste my time. There is a group of sea monsters wandering in the sea of Phenio City. There were some signs 7 or 8 years ago. In recent years, the number has begun to grow wildly. The municipal government has also sent some hunters to suppress the monsters, but the effect is minimal. In Lin Junxin's view, this group of people is more like a group of college students going out for training. Some students in magic colleges are very strong, but in fact they are not as strong as those hunters in the Hunter Association. The main reason is that they have serious problems with experience. To deal with monsters, you still rely on your brain, experience, and actual combat, not the very bright looking mage level medals. Lin Junxin is from a big family. Although he knows nothing about magic, he understands that being a mage does not mean that he can kill monsters. What's more, it is a group of sea monsters. Without a mage army, going deep into it rashly may lead to annihilation. You don't need to worry about these for us. Since we dare to take this job, we are sure of it. You don't need to question us so much now. Give us all the information about the sea monsters in your hands. Help us prepare some necessary things, and then sit in this exquisite office with your female secretary, and wait for our news. Jiang Xiaoxu said with extra confidence. Okay, your request is not a request to me at all, but I have to tell you first about what you are going to do. This is not what I asked you to do. Your parents, the school and the forces behind you want to pursue it. Please don't point at my nose when the time comes. I lost this investment, but I still want a reputation. Lin Junxin said. Seeing that they didn't listen to the dissuasion, Lin Junxin naturally didn't need to continue talking nonsense. But there are some things that he still needs to say in advance. After reminding them, he arranged a few people in the hotel of this building and asked people to prepare some necessary things for them to go out and kill monsters. When going out to hunt monsters, the most important thing is medicine. You have to bring more than a dozen kinds of antidote medicines alone. Nanju took this opportunity to directly trick the other party and asked for a lot of medicines. Of course, no one said anything about it. After all, the journey to the small R base is still a long way. It is true that there is a sea outside Phenio City, but there are also many uninhabited islands in that sea. In the past, these islands were regarded as ecological islands, and would be included in the scope of the security world for some tourists who like the original ecology to play. However, after frequent accidents in recent years, no one has developed them anymore. They have all become abandoned deserted islands. Even the cordon of the security world has been pulled toward the coastal line. Those scattered deserted islands have become the land of monsters. The shrinking scope of the security world has naturally caused the ships and fishermen along the coast to suffer. At the same time, it has also affected the transportation of a city. No one dares to do business here. It is not easy to transport a ship of goods, but there is no news while it is sailing. The silver is equivalent to pouring directly into the sea. In recent years, all the big investors in Phenio City have left. Only the big consortium like Lin is still struggling to support it and forcibly using money to maintain the appearance of a good situation here. In fact, no one is willing to buy those sea view houses, luxury buildings, and peerless buildings. The city is depressed, and the mayor is also a headache. After Tangmaro learned about this, he observed the terrain here, and had the intention of acquiring it in his heart. That is, he has no funds at present, otherwise, he is ready to pay directly. After all, for others, this place may be a little troublesome, but for Tangmaro, it is not dangerous. As long as the black snake is given to this area and a few totem beasts are found, this area will become the safest place in the country. In the future, you can set up your own family here. However, the premise of all this is money. On the slightly turbid ocean, a white ship is slowly sailing, gradually moving away from the safe sea area demarcated by people. The sea is different from the inland. In the inland, at least sentinels, post stations, and fortresses can be set up to block some important positions, to prevent demons from sneaking in. In the ocean, the so-called sea area of the security boundary is just to build a few sea towers, with at most a few military mages watching on the sea towers, which does not constitute a real line of defense. Fortunately, sea monsters are not particularly frequent in the coastal areas. Most coastal cities and counties can ensure safety with only a small number of troops. Femio City is a special case. Sea monsters have appeared frequently in this sea area. The last time they suppressed the demons, the island they arrived at was this rock island. They were attacked by sea monsters when they rested there at night and suffered heavy losses. AI Jiangdu pointed to an island on the map and said, "That is to say, that is where sea monsters appear most frequently." By the way, what kind of sea monster is it? If it is a Zinlin sea monster, then we should go back home. If this thing has a tribe, we will be finished. Jiang Yu said. Jiang Yu is a fair-skinned young man wearing glasses, and he looks like he is knowledgeable. Moreover, he is also a typical demon encyclopedia in the team. Of course, if you don't listen, you are just a tool. It's red, it can't be a blue scale sea monster. Nanju said. By the way, I'm not very good at water battles. If I'm dragged into the sea, wouldn't we, the non-water mages, be dead? Jiang Yu said seriously. For mages who are not water or ice mages, fighting in the water is a bit of a waste. Tangmaro didn't speak. After all, he didn't need to show off. Moreover, fighting doesn't just require ice mages. Seeing that no one spoke, Muningsu glanced at Tangmaro, but found that he didn't participate in the discussion at all, and then she understood that Tangmaro was giving her a chance. Now is obviously not the time to be hypocritical. She really needs the opportunity to get a formal team member of the national government. So she said, if necessary, I can freeze a sea area. Hearing Muningsu speak, several people looked over. In fact, everyone present knew how powerful Muningsu was. The reason why she became a subsidy was not her fault, but that unlucky uncle's fault. Otherwise, how could she have fallen to this point? Guan Yu flattered her. Ningzu, it's great to have you here. This way, we don't have to worry about a lack of water battle force. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 173 Going Out to Sea. When someone praises, there will naturally be someone who ridicules. For example, Mutingying, who was standing by, said with a sullen face, "What's so great about it? After all, she's just a substitute." Muningsu didn't care about Mutingying's ridicule, or rather, she didn't take her seriously at all. Guan Yu was a little unhappy. However, it was obviously not a wise move to offend the woman who currently supported the most in the Mu family because of this trivial matter. In the end, he had to give up. Although Mutingying was a little angry when she saw that Muningsu ignored her, she was a lady from a noble family after all. Naturally, she wouldn't scold like a shrew. At this time, Tangmaro was sitting on the barrier beside the boat, looking at the sea in the distance. There is indeed no large-scale attack by sea monsters in the country now, but that's only for now. In the future, the cities near the sea will become the largest defense base in the country. But after all, it's the memory of the previous life, and many things in this life can't be remembered clearly. He naturally had no way to remember the future. Just as Tang Mao was staring at the sea in a daze, Jiang Xiaoxu came over with a cocktail and teased, "Hey, big one hooligan, you won't be moved by the scene, right?" At this time, Jiang Xiaoxu had already changed into a bikini. The pieces of cloth that were not even as big as a palm covered several parts of her hot body, and the other milky white skin and elastic parts were completely exposed to the air. Looking at the little fox on her body, Tang Mao's mouth corners slightly raised and suddenly reached out to grab it. Jiang Xiaoxu, who was originally smiling like a fox, holding a glass of blue sky cocktail in her hand and looking like she was on vacation and relaxing, shaking her bouncing hips, suddenly found that she felt a pinch in front of her. In an instant, she was stunned. At this time, Tang Mao said, "It feels good. It's not fake." Although Jiang Xiaoxu looks like a fox, she is not that kind of woman. Although Tang Mao has a good control of strength, this kind of thing that she was taken advantage of and couldn't react made her angry. The next moment, Jiang Xiaoxu threw the cocktail and said angrily, "You bastard, I'm going to kill you." Tang Mao turned over and jumped to the top of the boat. Then he said with a playful look on his face, "Don't dream. Even if I give you another 20 years, you still can't be his opponent." She naturally knew that she was no match for Tang Mao. But this guy was just too much of a bully. Although no one saw it, but, doesn't she want to save face? Of course, while being angry, Jiang Xiaoxu was also quite surprised. Because Tang Mao made a move, she had almost no defense. You know, she is a mind mage, and she is best at interference. After a while of entanglement, there was nothing she could do to Tang Mao. In the end, she could only stomp her feet and then turn around and walk into the cabin. "I really don't dare to wear a bikini, it's too unprotective." After passing through the Anji, I soon saw some inexplicably scattered reefs on the ocean. These reefs are nothing more than exposed stones exposed to the sun and wind. I don't know how many years it has been, and they have been polished to be somewhat smooth. In fact, this kind of reef should not exist. It is easy for some cargo ships to run aground, but most of the economy is depressed, and no one has come to clear these obstacles for a long time. This kind of reef is called bamboo shoot reef. I didn't expect there to be so many here. The top student Jiang Yu began to analyze again. However, no one was interested in what Jiang Yu said, and in the end he had to observe the surroundings quietly. After traveling for a while again, Go around the front. There are a lot of dead cone bamboo shoot reefs. Liu Meng said to the driver in a hurry in the cab. "How can it be? Our detectors don't show it." The driver in the white uniform said, "Listen to me, go around." Liu Meng was a little anxious, and his voice became rough. Seeing him like this, the driver turned the rudder doubtfully and let the boat go around the sea in front. The next moment, a bang sound came from below. Suddenly, the boat shook slightly, and the people who were still relatively relaxed immediately became alert, and the air around them was about to solidify. "What's going on?" Ai Jiang Tu asked hurriedly. The right side of the boat scraped something, and some paint fell off, which is not a big deal. But fortunately, the boat sailed to the side, otherwise the bottom of the ship hit the sharp rocks below. Another driver checked the situation, and hurried back to report. In the cockpit, the driver in the white uniform looked at Liu Meng in surprise and couldn't help but look up and down at the little fisherman again. Then he said with a surprised face, "Young man, it's great. How did you know there was a dead cone reef in front? If it weren't for Liu Meng's words just now, they would have hit it now." This monster was not only eliminated, but also damaged the boat, which would be a big trouble. Especially in this place full of sea monsters, Liu Meng proudly explained with he knows. As for why, it was really difficult for him who dropped out of school early. Moreover, in fact, he made judgments based on the fluctuations of the seawater, the reflection of the sun, and his personal experience. This is a necessary skill for each of them to fish. He is more familiar with this sea area than anyone else. We are already a little far away from the land. There are many deserted islands nearby, most of which are only a few thousand square meters in size. After passing the two deserted islands in front, we should be able to see the rock island where they encountered sea monsters before. Ai Jiang Tu was indeed a military academy graduate. Unlike other casualty members, he and Nanju were almost always thinking about how to deal with sea monsters. According to Lin Jungson's description, there is a sea monster tribe living here. Now everyone does not know each other's strength, and they don't know whether they can deal with a tribe of monsters. Then we will camp there, and after everything is deployed, we will consider whether to release the demon gathering instrument. Nanju said. It's not appropriate to use the demon gathering device. We are not sure how many sea monsters there are. If there are tens of thousands of them, we will be trapped and killed. AI Jiangtu rejected this plan directly. As a captain and a graduate of a military academy, he is naturally not a mediocre person. The demon gathering device is a device that only the military has. The use of this thing is very simple. That is, it is similar to making a noise that humans cannot hear from the sky, the ground, and the sea. Once this sound reaches the ears of nearby demons, it will cause them to be irritated, and the next moment, they will come in groups to kill. This thing cannot be used casually before the situation is clearly detected. After all, if thousands of demons are attracted, they will have no choice but to die. Chapter 174, The Swallowed Infant. AI Jiangtu continued, since we are a tribe, we should not do such risky things. If a leader appears, someone here will die. After AI Jiangtu said this, Nanju did not disagree. Moreover, she also felt that her previous idea was a bit rash. After arriving at the rock island, several people left the boat and walked down. This island is, just as its name suggests, there is nothing else except rocks. The entire island is relatively spacious, but it would take a normal person 1 or 2 hours to walk around the island. There are still a lot of debris on the rock island, such as tattered tents, torn clothes, medicine boxes, etc., which must have been left by the team that came to exterminate the monster last time. Jiang Yu observed very carefully and soon found a trace on the rock. Then he said, look at this claw mark. The claws of this sea monster must be at least this long. AI Jiangtu asked, can you tell what kind of sea monster it is? Jiang Yu nodded and said with certainty, 3 claws, red. This kind of sea monster is actually quite rare. At least it won't be in our demon book, but I guess it should be the redling monster. Brown-haired Muting Ying said, redling monster, we have never heard of this thing. Before fighting with them, we'd better find out what abilities they have, and what deadly means their more advanced forms have. Although this woman is a jealous woman, there is nothing wrong with what she said. Jiang Yu explained, to be honest, this kind of sea monster is not easy to find on the internet. If we want to know what specific abilities it has, we can only use the information that Lin Jungson gave us. In short, we can confirm that they are not highly toxic, but their claws are quite sharp. After Jiang Yu's analysis, the few people had a general understanding. Just after he explained, he saw a 3 or 4 meter tall red monster jumping out from the high rock. This thing has a pair of huge and powerful feet, and a very strange ring fin on its waist, which looks very sharp. Its forelimbs are small and slender, and its 3 claws are as sharp and terrifying as 3 daggers with barbs. Jiang Yu was also confused for a moment. He just finished speaking. As a result, an adult appeared and said hurriedly, then, the one standing on it is an adult. As Jiang Yu finished speaking, several more large redling monsters appeared. They are tall and strong, all red, with bulging ring fins, and half protruding eyes staring down at the invaders. The ring fins on the waist of the large redling monster bulged, opened its big fish-shaped mouth, and immediately began to attack everyone. Their aura is very strong. Nanju frowned. If any of them encounters a dozen slave-level creatures, they can solve most of them with just one magic, and there is no need to be afraid of anything. However, it was obvious that they had made a mistake about one very important thing. The redling monsters were not servant-level creatures. When they were adults, they were warriors. Liu Meng, who came with them, was just an ordinary fisherman. He had never seen a real sea monster. No matter how hideous the villagers described them, they were not as terrifying as this row of monsters standing in front of him. The aura of the warrior level monsters was strong, and had a strong killing power on ordinary people. Liu Meng was so scared that he sat on the ground, sweating profusely. Tang Miao did not react much to the sudden appearance of more than 10 redling monsters. After all, for such a thing, he could kill as many as he could with a thunderbolt. However, he did not intend to rush to attack. because Guan Yu, who wanted to show off, had already taken action. Moreover, he killed one very quickly. The rest of the people also showed their magical powers and began to deal with these warrior level monsters. The warrior monsters might be fatal to ordinary mid-level magicians. However, to be selected into the Chinese mansion team, naturally everyone had a certain strength. In just a few minutes, these redling monsters were dealt with. One of them wanted to run away, but was caught by AI Jiang 2. The redling monster fell on its back, and AI Jiang 2 clenched his 5 fingers and pulled it back fiercely. The redling monster had no power to fight back and was dragged 50 or 60 meters by AI Jiang 2's void power and was already in front of AI Jiang 2. From beginning to end, Tang Mao had no intention of making a move. Of course, in their opinion, Tang Mao might have majored in the summoning system, and there was no other system to use, so he had no intention of making a move until the end. The redling monster was extremely angry, and after breaking free from the invisible hand, he immediately climbed up and pounced on AI Jiang 2 wildly. The redling monster has a strong jumping ability, and this guy is even more powerful when flying. Once its claws form a scissoring posture, it can easily cut off a person's head. AI Jiang 2 did not change his expression. He still used only one hand and pushed forward casually. The body of the redling Yao suddenly stopped while it was flying, and the next second it flew backwards. The redling Yao flew backwards to the rock, and its strong body was pressed there fiercely by an invisible force, looking like it was nailed to the rock wall. AI Jiang 2's hand was shining with a little silver and deep light. If the light had not faded, the redling Yao would have been pressed to the rock in a big shape. AI Jiang 2's strength, if not Tang Mao, is the kind of one-on-one in this group of people. His mental strength is not even weaker than Tang Mao. Of course, he is definitely not a match in a fight. But for the people who are currently known in the country, his talent is already top-notch, and his strength is also the top existence of the younger generation. Before, this redling Yao was cut by the wind blade, and it was this blow that not only opened a big hole, but also kept bleeding. At the same time, there was a young leg at the torn position, which seemed to have accidentally slipped out of the redling Yao's stomach. The observant AI Jiang 2 walked up to the red demon and tore open its belly with his hands. "Captain, what are you doing? It's so disgusting." Muting Ying complained and covered her mouth and nose with disgust in order to prevent the stench from the red demon's stomach from entering her delicate lungs. The people present were also puzzled. Why did AI Jiang 2 cut open the red demon's abdomen like this? What important things were inside? He was very careful when tearing open the monster's stomach. Slowly, he reached into the monster's abdomen and took out the little life with one foot exposed. When they saw this little life, that was already cold, the people around were obviously furious. AI Jiang 2 held the thing wrapped in a mixture of gastric juice, blood, and rotten food residues, and couldn't help but gasp. "Captain, what on earth are you?" Muting Ying was about to ask, but she was frightened by the disgusting baby in AI Jiang 2's arms and screamed. The others were also worried by Muting Ying's scream. When they saw that AI Jiang 2 was holding a dead baby, the atmosphere changed completely. Everyone had a different expression on their face. Most of the women turned away, not daring to look. It was eaten alive. It was still alive when it entered the stomach. AI Jiang 2 said with a slightly cold voice, after washing the baby. Zhao Manan was also angry when he looked at the dead baby. AI Jiang 2 was originally going to bury them. "Let me do it. It will be better to purify them with light," Zhao Manan said in a very depressed mood. At the edge of the sea rock, a strong beam of light fell from the sky and hit the two young bodies. Soon, no matter which one was well preserved, or which one was in a high state of decay, the strong light quickly decomposed and purified them. Their small bodies turned into ashes in just a few seconds, lingering under the golden beam of light. Chapter 175 Searching for the Siren's Lair. After purifying the two babies, AI Jiang 2 asked Jiang Yu and Muting Ying to check the babies here. The reason why people are so angry is that these children were swallowed. They are in the city, in the Anji. How could they set foot in the land of demons and be swallowed alive by these redling monsters when they can't even walk steadily? Demons can be allowed to occupy most of the territory and let them wander in a wider land. When a large number of demons invade, they can endure humiliation and shrink the scope of the Anji. But demons must not be allowed to be so rampant that they treat human babies as food and eat them alive like this. In fact, when Tangmao saw those children, he always felt something was wrong. How could such children and the Anji be swallowed by such a damn sea monster? He left here immediately to see if he could find anything. Jiang Yu and Muting Ying returned to Finio City as ordered, and the others stayed on the island. What should we do next? Guan Yu asked. AI Jiang Tu said coldly, find their nest and kill them in one fell swoop. As a student from a military academy, he naturally couldn't sit idly by and watch such a thing. Nanju said helplessly, but where should we look for them? After Nanju said this, AI Jiang Tu calmed down a little. After all, this is a territory of demons. Before they are sure whether there are commander level demons here, it is indeed very risky for them to rush in rashly. At this time, Tang Mao, who had just left, caught a redling monster and walked back. Then he said, this little thing can just lead the way. A slave level redling monster? Looking at the little monster in Tang Mao's hand, one of them muttered. Tang Mao threw the little demon in front of Jiang Shaoxu, and then said, leave a mark for it, and we will follow it to find its lair. Nanju looked at Tang Mao, hesitated and said, if it is really a tribe, there must be a commander level 1. We may not be able to solve it if we go there. As for the commander level 1, I will deal with it. If this was said by someone else, I'm afraid that no one present would believe it. However, Tang Mao's words seemed to be no problem when he thought of the two commander level contract pets. Tang Mao said so, and everyone naturally had no objection. Those who can be selected from the competitions of various universities have explosive combat power, and the essential difference between them and those who have been in society for a long time is that they are all still very young. Young people have bad tempers. The municipal government and the military may estimate the gains and losses of suppressing the demon, but they will not be so numb. Once their personality bottom line is violated, why not kill the sea monster's lair? Jiang Shaoxu was a bitch in her daily life, always liked to tease all the men in the team, but she obviously didn't climb to this position in this way. She just liked to play, but when it came to this kind of thing, she was also the one who had no choice but to do it. After Jiang Shaoxu placed a mark on it and used the mind system to shock it, Tang Mao's cloud stepping boots appeared. Then, he kicked it away. Next, they just had to follow this mind mark, and the little red Lingaio would take them to the red Lingaio's lair. At this time, everyone was full of anger. When the little red Lingaio thought he had escaped, everyone had already boarded the ship and followed the little red Lingaio silently. The little red Lingaio was still swimming very fast, and the ship started to chase it with full power. There were several islands in the Azure Ocean, and I don't know how many years they have been standing quietly in this sea area. Each island is not very big, much smaller than the small island where everyone was before. Most of them are only 2 or 3 times the size of a large gymnasium, and the diameter is basically no more than 500 meters. Seeing such a broken island, everyone's heart sank. If it was a big island, they could fight with the redling monster on the island and lead them to a place without water, which would definitely be beneficial to them. But such a broken island is impossible to stop them from entering the sea. Since they are sea monsters, their most terrifying weapon is definitely not their sharp claws, but the sea water. I have checked. There are 4 broken islands in total. There is one in the middle, and the other 3 are in an irregular triangle that surrounds the island in the middle. The 3 outer broken islands are all a kind of sea monkey monster with brown hair all over their bodies, and the broken island inside is inhabited by all the redling monsters. Guan Yu, who went to investigate the situation, returned to the boat and said to everyone. Nanju was puzzled and asked, why are there sea monkey monsters? Sea monkey monsters are the most spineless race in the ocean. These vassal slaves can be seen in almost every powerful demon tribe and tribe. They have average combat power, but they are very good at finding food, stealing, and escaping. They are very servile, so this race is the most common in the ocean. At this time, Nanrangni from the Ocean Academy spoke. Nanrangni is from the south, and is the type who talks a lot in the team. He is a little closer to Muningsu. However, Tang Mao clearly remembered that this little bitch was not a good thing. He even reminded Muningsu, but unfortunately, his kind reminder was not taken seriously by her. In the end, Tang Mao could only choose to let it go. After all, time will tell a person's true character, and there will always be a time when Muningsu will cry. Before this, she was willing to befriend her, so he naturally treated her calmly. Some things are always seen with one's own eyes. At this time, AI Jiangtu asked, "Are there many sea monkey monsters?" Guan Yu replied, "I checked and found that there are about 2,000 to 3,000 sea monkey monsters on the 3 islands. It's not a lot, but it's a bit troublesome to deal with them." AI Jiangtu asked again, "How many redling monsters are there?" Guan Yu told the truth, "It's hard for me to count this. The perception of redling monsters is much sharper than that of sea monkey monsters. I can't get too close to their nests. I estimate that there are about 100 to 200. In the end, he just used an estimate. If he still pretended to be cool at this time, it would be a bit stupid. It can even be said that, if he didn't make it clear, if something went wrong, the problem would be all his. Nanchu held up his chin and said, "No wonder they said that there is a tribe of sea monsters. If there are more than 100 redling monsters, their fighting power is no less than that of a small tribe." AI Jiangtu paused, then said, "If the strength shown by the redling monsters is the same as those on the island just now, it should not be a problem for us to wipe them out. The only thing to be afraid of is the sea. They become stronger, and we are restricted. The situation is unfavorable." Muningsu said at this time, "If the distance between these islands is not too large, I can freeze the sea between the islands." Everyone was slightly stunned, but then they were relieved. After all, they had seen the power of Muningsu's arrow. AI Jiangtu asked again, "Freeze them all? Do you need other rice mages to help you?" "No." Muningsu shook her head and said, "It's just that, if this happens, I won't be able to get involved in the battle." AI Jiangtu said, "If we can freeze the sea between the 4 broken islands, it will be equivalent to restricting the strength of the redling Iao, and the rest can be left to us." Several people agreed, and then everyone began to look for a suitable location. After all, when she freezes the sea, her own safety is also a problem. If this matter is not handled properly, it will be a huge threat to her. At this time, Tang Mao said, "I will let the contracted beast guard her at that time, so don't worry about her safety. The shadow demon tiger fighting in the sea is obviously not very useful, but it is enough to protect Muningsu." Now, AI Jiangtu and others are even more confident. Rewards and extra chapters are here. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.